completely Italian. Raheem Sterling's representatives have been in Los Angeles to discuss an 8-part biopic of his life. This comes after headlines yesterday suggested he could be the subject of a player plus cash bid from 13-time European champions Real Madrid. And there's a bizarre story. I've been waiting for years, frankly, Charlie, to have an excuse to talk about video games on the radio. And I have finally got one. FaZe Jarvis, a music and Fortnite YouTuber, has been banned from the video game indefinitely for life for cheating on a live stream. He was using an aimbot. We're going to be getting into this with a gaming expert later in the show. Charlie, lovely to have you. Lovely to have you here in the Posh Boys studio. The big question, of course, is do you consider yourself to be posh?
Well, this is the million-dollar question. I'm surprised it wasn't on the headlines because you say, Johnny, you've waited your whole life to finally talk about video games. I've waited to become one of the Posh Boys. I look at you, I look at Guy, and I think, when can I join that double act? Is it now a trio? No, of course it's not.
It is, absolutely. We'll work on the voice slowly. Yeah. By the end of the show, you'll be talking like this, and it's going to be glorious. And it's going to be particularly glorious because we've got a top set of topics to talk about, starting with an extremely serious one. Saracens, the all-conquering rugby outfit. They've won 4 of the last 5 premierships. They're reigning premiership and European champions. They've been docked 35 points and fined over £5 million for allegedly breaching salary cap rules. Now, they're appealing against that finding. They say they did nothing wrong. And it's quite a complex scenario. The way it works in the Premiership is you've got a £7 million salary cap. That's excluding your kind of star players. But basically, it's the rugby equivalent of financial fair play. It keeps a level playing field. The investigation, however, is into shared investments made by Saracens star players and the owner of the club. The way this is working is the players in question are made the chief operators, shall we say, of companies in which the owner of Saracens is a shareholder, and this allegedly is a way of getting around the salary cap, right? It's a way of giving your players more money without paying them more money. So the suggestion, and it is actually correct, is that Owen Farrell, for example, is the head of an investment company called Faz Investments Limited. Mako and Billy Vunipola were made directors of a company called Vunprop Limited. That's both of them in 2017. Maro Itoje, who's been at Saracen since 2012, is a shareholder in the firm MN Property Solutions, while Richard Wigglesworth is a joint shareholder with the Saracens owner again in Wiggy 9 Investments. So they are in business with the owner of the club to get more money. The question now is whether that's a salary. Do you think that is a genuine loophole that they've tried to exploit? Because they're denying that it is.
Well, it's a very tricky one, isn't it, Johnny? This is a huge story, obviously, coming out today about the Saracens. This investigation going on now for 7 months since April. And we're talking about really supporting players' personal lives versus salary cap. And salary cap, as we know, you mentioned it in football, huge at the minute. Financial fair play. It's there for the sustainability of clubs. And one of the key things that Saracens mentioned, because they're coming out, they're appealing, they've made their statement, Johnny, and they say Saracens is proud of its pioneering, innovative approach to player welfare, developing their talents and supporting their entrepreneurial spirit for life beyond rugby. Now, when you look at that's a brilliant thing, isn't it? And I mean, they want to help you beyond your career, which, as we all know, in any sport is a short career. Why shouldn't they be helped? We should have more lessons like this at school. When you are helped, you should have classes on money in your later life. Yes, fans would argue, and it's been rife on social media today. I've been reading up, and it has been quite toxic from other fans saying, the punishment should be this severe because they want it as a deterrent.
Let's be fair here. Whether Saracens have been doing anything wrong or not, whenever you see the most successful club in a country fail, there is glee. When we look back to Juve with the Calciopoli scandal, which was, of course, much more serious, if you're a Milan fan or an Inter fan, you look at that and you go, way! Someone has knocked Juve off their perch in the same way that United's struggling now. Arsenal fans, Chelsea fans, Liverpool fans are looking down the table and really enjoying it. We do take glee, don't we?
Absolutely, and even in more recent times, City were, amongst an investigation for financial fair play. Chelsea find themselves in a transfer ban. They're playing the kids. Look how well it's going for them this year. But, you say loophole, but there is an argument, and other people say, well, if it's a loophole, it potentially means loophole means you're doing wrong. You've found a flaw in the system. But are they helping their players, How much does this come under the salary cap? And this is the discussion here today. And when you look at other teams, Johnny, and we have to do this because we have to compare Wasps, Harlequins. They've had several punishments in the past, much smaller fines, and obviously now Saracens are being made. Well, it's huge, isn't it? We have to set the precedent here. Here's what happens when you do make a supposed wrongdoing as they're doing. But this is huge. We're talking about 35 points. They're now on minus 26. They've gone from 4th to bottom, Johnny. This is huge.
It is huge, and the kind of deduction that they've been given, if they'd been given it last year, they'd have finished 3rd bottom, right? So they wouldn't have been relegated, only one team goes down. But it is a serious sanction, and it's important to remember, if you're listening at home and you're more of a football fan than a rugby fan, 5 million in rugby terms is huge money. This is a seriously draconian punishment. At the point where you're spending 7 million a year on your salaries, this is 70% of your player turnover per season. Absolutely massive. But it's a complex one, Charlie, because above all else, it comes down to how we are defining a salary, right? And I would define a salary as your wage paid straight to you by an employer with no risk involved, right? That is to say, I sign a contract where you are paying me X amount of money for a year with no potential losses. Now, the defence that Nigel Ray and Saracens are levelling, and I think they're a very good one, is that, listen, this is an investment. His quote from back well before this judgment was reached, he gave the interview back in May. He said there is a huge difference between investment, where the player can lose money, where we can lose money, and salary. That is the most important point. To me, it's what you were saying. It's him saying he cares about his players. He wants to look after them after their careers. Normally, when I see a defence like that, I go, well, it's an excuse. I'm cynical. I go, come off it. This time I genuinely read it and I believed him. And he has a point, because unless he was going up to these players before they signed for the club and saying, listen, we'll give you that salary and you and me will also go into business, which he clearly wasn't doing. It isn't a salary. He's gone into business with them, as he's perfectly entitled to. They could lose loads of money from this. It just so happens that they're quite good businessmen, and more power to them, surely.
Brilliant. I wish my governor would say, look, here's a chance to earn money. We could lose. And let's not forget.
Charlie, you just said governor. If you want to be one of the posh boys,
I've done it already. I'm out after 11 minutes.
You've got to work. This isn't Oliver Twist.
Basically, my boss and chief CEO, if they made a chance for me to make money on the side in a venture that where you can win and lose. And let's not remember that the bottom line, the signature line here, Johnny, the party line is they weren't forced into this. They didn't have to do it. They made it of their own choice, and it's redundant of their wages. And, in any other line of work, if this was happening, he would probably be being praised for this. He would be getting plaudits. He's trying to look after, someone was trying to look after their staff. I know loads of similar other companies do it, where they look after their staff. They do a Christmas share save, and they get money at the end of it. John Lewis do. I mean, look, for over 25 years, he said, I've put my heart and soul into the game I love. Together, we have created something incredibly special with the Saracens family, both on and off the field. Where's the wrong in that?
Well, quite. But worth noting, Nigel Ray is a man who is a fairly spectacular philanthropist, really. He dedicates a huge amount of money to investing in a range of companies. He's supported players in the past when they've opened coffee shops and the like. For me, this is the same, but there is a broader implication here than just for Saracens. A, there's the precedent that it sets for Premiership rugby about how we are judging salary, how we're defining salary. And Saracens, it's important to note, are not just appealing. They're claiming the precedent has already been set that investments aren't salary. So they think they're going to be fine. They're appealing it, and as yet, they've just got an asterisk next to their name in the table. They haven't technically had those points permanently deducted yet, but there is a World Cup connotation here, right? Because there were 8 Saracens players on the field in that World Cup final. I think 5 or 6 of them playing for England. They knew they were under investigation. What is that doing to your headspace for an England World Cup campaign, or indeed a South African World Cup campaign? Owen Farrell, for example, of Faz9 Investments, he's on just over 750 grand a year, right? So big, big money as a rugby player. He'll be paying top rate tax on that. But the crucial thing here is if HMRC, and this is going to get legal, if HMRC deem the investment money to be part of his salary, I don't know what Farrell has personally made from that investment, but they will be going back and taxing him at that top rate, 45%, on all of that. So if you're Owen Farrell, you're there trying to gear yourself up to lead your nation in a World Cup and bring the World Cup trophy home. And you're also thinking, am I about to be slapped with a multi-million-pound tax bill? It's not the perfect way of getting your head in the game.
It isn't, but they know what they're getting into when they do this. Look, it didn't affect them. They got to the World Cup final nonetheless. Did it change the outcome? No, they knew it was going on. This investigation has been going on since April. And you mentioned the money they may get taxed on. You mentioned the money they may have made, but you also mentioned the word personal. This was their own personal money, their own personal venture. This wasn't something, like I said, that has come from a wage. So it's their personal money. They can choose how to spend it, how they wish. It's their own money, and this is the argument. And you mentioned other clubs may not like it, and that Saracens Academy is very, very productive. It's given England the core spine of its side.
It absolutely has, and there's a lot to be said for what it's doing for rugby more broadly. This is a part of that, and what it is doing for those blokes. We talked a lot during the World Cup. Maro Itoje and Owen Farrell both studying leadership, thinking about how to grow as people. This investment is part of that, and I find it interesting on the face of it that lots of people from within rugby and other rugby clubs are outraged. Lots of people, you or I, who don't have a vested interest, read the facts and sort of go, well, okay, isn't that fair enough? Listen, this one is going to run and run. It's going to run as our main theme throughout the show, and we've got some superb guests for you on it. We're going to be talking to sports finance expert Ciaran Mcguire, who's going to give us all of the gritty legal details. And we've also got George Shooter on the line, former England and Saracens player. So lots to get our teeth into. Don't go anywhere.
This is Love Sport.
Hello, my name's Paula. I'm from the Shropshire area and I'm a business development manager. I use a spokesman said for my car insurance where I've saved over £500 and also on travel insurance as well. So in total, me and my family have saved about £600. I would definitely use it again and I would definitely recommend it.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
Love Sport.
There are some people where you look at them, Charlie, and you're one of them, and you just think, you know what, all of my self-confidence, all of my self-esteem just went out of the window because they operate on such an extraordinarily high level. How can I ever compete? And Raheem Sterling is certainly another one. If being electrically quick, incredibly skillful, scoring goals for free, earning 300 grand a week wasn't enough for the man, he is set, if today's Times is to be believed, to become a global star. His representatives have been in LA, and I feel like as soon as you have A, representatives, and B, they're in LA, you know you are becoming a properly big deal. They're in Los Angeles talking to producers about filming an 8-part biopic of his life. This is going to rocket him into the stratosphere of celebrity, right? Not just in the UK, in the US, around the world. Are we going to see Raheem Sterling develop not just as a potential Ballon d'Or winner, but a global superstar?
Huge. I reckon we're already on the verge of it now. We're teetering on the edge. For me, Sterling is an icon. He is a legend. He is brilliant, Johnny, in every box. He ticks every box. When you look at him, not only has he matured as a player, his game has gone from strength to strength. He is an idol now, and the kids idolise him. He's become a hero for many. When you look at his story, where he started, where he come up from, coming up through the ranks at QPR, going on to Liverpool, then going on to City and working with Pep Guardiola, we know how frightening he is at the minute for England and Man City. But everything else that's going on in and around Raheem's life and all the stories that come along with it, immaturity, he's arrogant, look at the money he spends. Again, this has been a big theme of the show. It's money, you know, again, it's his money, it's how he spends it. But he's all taking it with a pinch of salt. He's learnt from those mistakes, and he truly now is not just for young footballers how they want to manage their game, who should they, you know, mirror and look up to. Me, I look up to Raheem Sterling in all walks of life. Your young kids at school, you should be looking at Raheem Sterling. He is that next national treasure. We looked at people like Harry Kane. Can he be, you know, the next Beckham, the captain of England, Mr. Captain Fantastic leading it? But no, it's Raheem Sterling, Johnny, and as it should be.
He is just extraordinary. The question then is how long he should stay at Manchester City, because we're hearing reports Real Madrid are preparing a fairly hefty bid, 70 million quid plus Gareth Bale. It won't be nearly enough to get him, but the bright lights and big name of Madrid does normally tempt players. Will his head be turning?
I don't think it will. I genuinely don't. He's in this new space now, and I think that the longer Pep stays there, he'll be there with him, and maybe even beyond that. Why would he go to Madrid? You know, this isn't a time when Real Madrid and the Galacticos are dominating how they used to, going out and signing everyone left, right, and centre. If Pep Guardiola, let's not forget, says that Phil Foden is worth £450 million, I can't begin to tell you what Raheem's market value is, because the man is absolutely incredible. They're winning it all at City, back-to-back champions, going for the three-peat this year. We know they're chasing that European glory. Pep wants it so badly for his City side. He's loved, he's adored. He has become the Three Lions main man. We see what he's doing in the community, and that's what we also need to touch upon. Why would he go elsewhere? Would he be held in the same regard in La Liga as he is in the Premier League? Would the fans adore him? Look at Gareth Bale, he's having a terrible time. He's only got to look at that and go, when you went there, Gareth Bale, scoring in cup finals, now you were getting booed. I'm loved here. Why would I go?
I think there's another point on Sterling, which is look at the stats before Pep Guardiola went to Man City and after, right? He didn't score any goals beforehand. Pep has come in and turned him into this kind of clinical, lethal, not quite centre forward, but actually not far off. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him slide that way. You'd want to stay there, right? You'd want to stay there as long as Pep is there. Once Pep goes, go to Real Madrid then. But as long as you are improving, stay where you are.
What does he get at Real Madrid, though, Johnny? You say move to Real Madrid. What does he achieve by going to play Real Madrid that he cannot achieve at City? I know you can say, I've won league titles in different countries, I've experienced a different culture, but really and truly, Real Madrid are not the side that they were. Why would he leave Real Madrid for City?
It's a very good point, but there are two questions, right? Are they the side that is going to be world-beating, or are they the club that is going to be world-beating? In terms of the team on the pitch, I agree with you. They're not the best in the world. But as a club, that kind of cachet, that je ne sais quoi,
completely.
just the reputation, the gravitas they have, I think there's an element of being able to say, I went to Real Madrid. You know what I mean? I was a Galactico. That is when your grandkids are sitting on your knee. Oh, I played for Man City. Okay, who were they? No, I was at Real Madrid and I did the business.
Yeah, this is Mark Galactico being called up to the Love Sport Drive. The
Stop
gravitas.
flirting.
I'm with JB.
Stop flirting.
Also, Johnny, you know, we're countering each other here. You mentioned the gravitas, but he's the big fish here at the City Pond. Is he the big fish at Real Madrid? You know, you mentioned Hazard and the other players. Does he become, maybe, you know, he's on a par with them, whereas at City, we always look to him. Aguero's going, those bigger names. I know they've got De Bruyne, Silva, but it's Sterling the one that he spoke about.
Well, one thing that Raheem Sterling is very keen on is FIFA, the video game where you can play football. He's got one of these player cards, right? Have you seen these? I'm really, really jealous, where if you are a pro player, EA, who published the game, will give you a 99 rated version of yourself. Imagine that, Hawkins, 99, centre forward. You would destroy...
It's probably a bit short for me, 99.
But the other game he's very keen on, Dele Alli is another. Mesut Ozil apparently plays 6 hours a day of Fortnite. An Arsenal fan ran the numbers and was like, listen, the reason why his form has dropped off is because he gets home from training and he sits on the Xbox. Fortnite, and I've been waiting for so long to talk about this on the radio, by the way. I get in every day and I think, Johnny, you're not allowed to talk about video games. That makes me sad. Well, I have an excuse. Fortnite is in the news because FaZe Jarvis, who is a YouTube superstar playing the game, he's been banned for life from playing it for cheating. Now, if you're tuning in and going, I like rugby, I like football, what is this Fortnite rubbish? A quick explanation. It's a third-person video game. Have you played it, Charlie?
I have played it, yeah.
Absolutely top draw. Premise is simple. Battle Royale. You get dropped out of a bus that flies through the sky. Bear with me. And onto an island, and you can land anywhere on this island. There's 100 of you. You land with no equipment apart from a pickaxe. You can raid chests and so on. Find the best guns. Kill each other. Last man standing, last woman standing, whatever, wins. And it's a victory royale. I've played it. It's really, really difficult. This kid is quality at it. He's quality at it without cheating. And it's worth noting that FaZe, which is the clan he's in, are big. They're the biggest on YouTube. We talk Real Madrid. If you are at FaZe, you are the Ronaldo. You are the Messi. That is the kind of pinnacle of this stuff. But he's got in a spot of trouble. He has effectively been doping, right? He has gone full Lance Armstrong here because he's using an aimbot during a public online match when he was streaming for a YouTube video, where essentially what that does is
He wasn't using it in a competitive game, though.
No, he wasn't, but there's an argument where you are selling your product as being your own brilliance as a gamer. So if you are misrepresenting that product, there is a sort of bit of naughtiness going on. The way that an aimbot works is every time you pull the trigger, the bullet automatically flies into somebody's head, which obviously makes you quite good. Does it particularly bother you that a kid is cheating on a video game?
Does it bother me? Yeah, it does bother me when he's amassed 2 million or 1.3 million from playing and he's been using cheating, basically, an aimbot. And you mentioned there doping. I thought, oh, that's quite harsh. But, you know, Fortnite and today, this is esports. These are classed as esports. This is huge. So if someone is gaining an advantage to the point where they can earn ludicrous sums of money from playing games, then yes, they are cheating. He has 600,000 subscribers. He's come out. He's done a video. He takes responsibility. His defense is that, you know, it wasn't in a competitive match. You know, this was, you know, just for his video subscribers. Everyone does it. But when you are of the Ronaldo, you mentioned their FaZe, it's a huge, huge loss to fans that want transparency. And we know the gaming, any social media, as I keep saying, it is toxic. He has come under a lot of abuse. His mum has stepped in saying, please leave him alone. He's an honest boy. It's one mistake. But people want honesty and transparency, which he wasn't giving. And when you're making sums, Johnny, in esports, look at the young guy who won the Fortnite World Cup, $15 million. The money is absolutely gigantic.
And on YouTube, it's even bigger. I, in my misspent youth, had a gaming YouTube channel, Charlie Hawkins.
Oh, we're getting that up. 100%.
It did quite well. I wasn't on this guy's level, but I was getting 100,000 views an episode. And
What?
Yeah.
You never wrote me back. Dear Stan. I just want you as a fan.
And I wasn't making huge money, but you can make decent money for just playing video games.
What was your gaming choice?
FIFA for me. This was pre-Fortnite. That reveals how old I am. But the case here is, as you highlight, the age. This kid's 17, right? So if he'd murdered somebody, if he'd done something really awful and had been found guilty in a court of law rather than just by Epic Games, who publish Fortnite, we wouldn't be able to name him. Is it right that we can come out and just flat ban this kid for life for a mistake he's made as a kid, vilify him on the internet for a mistake he has made as a kid? Should we be being a little more flexible and going, yes, okay, he cheated, but we all cheat occasionally?
Well, I don't know if we should send out the message we'll cheat occasionally, because hopefully we don't. But I certainly agree that, yes, we all make mistakes, and I'm still making mistakes. I make mistakes every day. I can't wait to finish this show and learn of the mistakes I made. But when you are young and everyone knows about it and everyone's jumping on you, you know, these are the times when you are a teenager. You want to learn from those mistakes, sort of let it go under the radar. But now it's being broadcasted to the world. Ultimately, Johnny, we could say the flip side is, well, when you're a YouTube subscriber, you've chosen that mistake to be public. You've chosen to be out there. You have to, what comes with it, comes with it. But it is tough, and we speak about social media, and maybe me and you can have a discussion on this, and it goes a lot further. Look at the abuse Granit Xhaka was getting. He reached boiling point. People were writing about his daughter and his mum, and it got too much for him. He said he reached a boiling point. Social media can overstep that mark, and I think it's the mark that where we have to draw in a line, because when people see, he's cheated, we see a headline. We don't see that he is 17, that he is a kid, and that he was probably just trying to impress his fans and subscribers.
One thing I would say, as someone who enjoys playing video games online, is when someone is hacking like this, it completely ruins it for everyone else. In Fortnite, you're playing with 100 other people. If there is a bloke in there with the ability to kill you instantly, it wastes my time completely. It completely invalidates any chance I have of winning. You are ruining it for everyone. It's like going out and playing football with winged football boots that allow you to fly over the opponent's defence, or the ability to turn the offside rule off. There's no point, and it's not fun. I've had it in shooters where some bloke has got a switch which makes him impossible to kill, and you think, yeah, all right, you're hard, but frankly, you have ruined it for everybody else.
Maybe VAR's using an
Maybe
aimbot.
VAR. We can
An
get it in.
aimbot, which he's fired wrong.
Well, quite possibly. His head was slightly offside. We're going to be talking to Andy Robertson, who's a gaming journalist for Guardian, BBC and Mirror Tech before 4 on this, so stay tuned.
This is Love Sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
Discreet.
leak.
Masculine.
You're on.
Secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in.
Tenna men. Keep control.
You're in.
No.
Stop paying too much for your energy bills. Brian saved money on his at aspokesmansaid.com. Can you?
I'm Brian from Swadlincote, South Derbyshire, and I saved about £400 on my energy bill with a Spokesman Said. The iSpokesman Said website was very easy to use, and the money I saved I put towards a holiday.
Compare home energy quotes from the UK's biggest suppliers in just a matter of minutes with aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Love sport.
We're joined on the line now by the wonderful Sir Viv Richards, legendary West Indian batsman. Sir Viv, thanks for your time. Lovely to have you. You are, of course, talking to us about the world travel market and, of course, Antigua. What was your experience growing up there like?
Experience growing up in Antigua is we as free as a bird, and it's amazing the things that we did as kids. When you look back at yourself now as an adult, you know, you're wondering how you did accomplish that sort of stuff. But growing up in Ireland, where you almost knew everyone and the neighbors, and it was just a special place, you know, and we're just trying to share what is so special to us growing up as a kid to folks who come as tourists and folks who want to be part of the Antiguan dream, as I call it, for 3 weeks, whether it's a month. But we live on a very special piece of real estate.
Sounds absolutely extraordinary. And I know you're keen to talk about the world travel market as well, with some huge deals predicted there. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, to be fair, this is where we come and start our stuff. We come, and especially on shows like this, we try and highlight the product which we have. There's also a stand that you can come and just have a look around, and that, I think, would give you some sort of indication to the vacation that I think you may look to require. It is just special. You know, we try our best each year to make sure that Antigua is highlighted enough, because why? It is our number one seller in terms of with the economics and all that. So having that, we got to make sure we are at our very best. So if you come on the stand, you will see the things that can be enjoyed, and you take it from there.
Well, it sounds like I'll definitely have to visit. I want to ask you about a certain Mr. Jofra Archer, because Sir Garfield Sobers has claimed that the West Indies have lost a good one. They said the West Indies should have done more to keep Jofra playing for them. Do you agree with that?
Well, I certainly agree with that, but one's got to remember as well that Jeffrey Archer is from Barbados, and there's a whole lot of cricketing buffs out of Barbados. Let's not forget that. So I think he was there in Barbados before West Indies really had a hand on him.
So for you, is there a frustration of him playing for England?
I would feel that, because it was the one that got away, and that's a huge fish in my opinion. Especially the contribution that he would have made to England winning their first ever World Cup in cricket. Wow. It's I think the jury must be still out in the Caribbean to why and how this individual got away.
Yeah, frustrating for you. For overall, an extraordinary summer of cricket. And I have to say, when I saw Ben Stokes at Headingley proving the entirety of Australia wrong, I did actually think of you. Do you think you could have produced an innings like that?
No, it's always nice to see. There are times when you're called upon, you know, and this is what makes you. There's sometimes in sports, right, there's the horses that also ran. And I will say for sure, when I say also ran, they're not at the forefront. But when you see knocks like what Ben Stokes would have done at that particular time in the circumstances, also, he didn't also run. He was running for quite a long time. So that's a good horse.
Seriously impressive. And a quick word on Chris Gayle. He's, of course, getting on a bit now, but still batting very, very impressively. How long do you think he can carry on for?
It's not for me to say how long he can carry on for. It's up to Chris Gayle to believe how long he can carry on for. If he's still productive, yes. If it's not, if and buts and things like that, we should look to maybe move forward. But so long as he's contributing, in my opinion, because at this present time as well, too, you look at maybe sometimes the makeup of the West Indies teams, individuals, new guys are introduced and never quite comes to the party. But if Chris is prolonging his retirement and he's producing, I'm all for that. And yet he can still be of some influence in the field. I'm all for that. But if that's not the case, well, he should have a long look.
This is Love Sport.
Fantastic to talk to the great Sir Viv Richards earlier, and a man who leaves a cricketing legacy, but of course a broader legacy, Charlie, because elite black sportsman of his kind, operating back when he was, really blazed the trail for further black sportsmen to come through. It's a mission which is far from over, and the likes of Raheem Sterling, who we've already discussed on this afternoon's show, have well and truly picked up that mantle. But frustrating when you go from talking about Sir Viv Richards and the brilliance of that legacy to having to move on to the continuation of racism in top-level sport, again in the Italian Serie A. Now, I'm not saying that because English football is perfect. We've seen very recently in non-league and indeed the professional game that our house needs getting in order as well. But Serie A is a whole nother sphere of awfulness, frankly. We saw now Brescia striker Mario Balotelli. He's returned to his hometown club. He was racially abused by Hellas Verona fans at the weekend. He kicked the ball into the stand angrily, threatened to walk off the pitch, then came back on, by the way, and scored. But we've had the official response to it. The Italian club have been ordered to close part of their stadium for one game. One game. Brilliant. Okay. That's a suitable punishment, is it, for chanting racist abuse for 90 minutes and then claiming you didn't hear it? To be fair on Verona, they have taken a tougher stance. They have banned one fan, only one, but they banned him for 11 years, and he's a pretty prominent fan, and I would also say within that, a fairly prominent racist. He's the head of their ultras, Luca Castellini, who had previously said that Balotelli can never be completely Italian because he's black, and said, listen, we can't be racist. We praise the black players on our team. By the way, he didn't say black players. He said a different word. So he should be banned for life. Never mind 11 years. But Verona doing something. Why are we still seeing such weak responses from the powers that be?
Yeah, it's unbelievable, Johnny. You mentioned it there. Where have they plucked that figure from? 11 years. What does that do? The man should be banned for life. What was an 11-year...
Maybe someone lent on the keyboard and they were going to give him a one-year ban.
Very quickly. Yeah, we'll just give him a one game. We've got 11 years. I mean, look, let's be honest, it's laughable. And you're so right. We have to always take a look at ourselves. Society over here, football over here. But Serie A, they are in dire straits at the minute. What is going on with Lukaku as well? Antonio Conte's come out and spoken. But the problem is, one of the bigger problems, and it's not talked about, the mayor for Verona has come out and has denied any racism happened. You know, he said, I deny all these claims. None of the fans racially abused Balotelli. What planet is he on? Let's be genuinely serious. These are people with in positions of power. We need all the help we can get to try to stop it, at the root of the cause. And we've got people like this, the mayor coming out and saying, this didn't even happen. It was like when England played Bulgaria, the Bulgarian president saying, come out, prime minister saying, this didn't happen. This cannot help. We need them to come out and say, this happened. We're going to try to stop it. If the city's coming out, what action can we expect? And we're hearing of fans and bans and for years. I don't want to hear about fines and bans. We're seeing that Leeds United were fined £200,000 for Spygate and racism. Bulgaria gets 66 or 6,000. It's absolutely a joke, Johnny.
And Charlie, let's bring this back to Saracens. Because the irony is that in all of these sports, as soon as you are found to have been in some way financially irregular, and of course Saracens deny any wrongdoing and are appealing those findings, as soon as you're deemed to have done anything wrong financially, they throw the book at you.
Completely.
£5 million, 35-point fine. They're going to be in a relegation battle where they're the reigning champions. That is a serious measure to take. But if you're racist, we'll close a bit of the stadium for a game and then back at it, lads. Shocking. Absolutely terrible. And you bring up the England versus Bulgaria game, Charlie. Well, after that match, the president of UEFA, Alexander Cheferin, said we're going to wage war on the racists. Wage war. With what? Potatoes? Water pistols?
No,
what kind of war is this?
Yeah, we've got 3 steps.
Yeah, the first step is you don't do anything.
Yeah.
Second step is you don't do anything. And the third step is you close one row of seats.
Johnny, so,
for half a game.
I mean, we shouldn't be, but it's absolutely laughable. And that's why these people are going to do it anyway, these clowns, and they are clowns, and I will say that. But the fact of it is, the punishments are embarrassing. They know they can get away with it. How can you have 3 steps, a protocol to get rid of it? It should be once and you're out. No, you can do it another 2 times. You've got another 2 strikes, mate, and then maybe we'll act on it in a third one. Your FA will pay a fine that will have nothing to do with you, so it's not really your problem, is it?
Yeah, this isn't a parent counting to 3. You know what I mean? It's not a naughty child. It's a racist. Take it rather more seriously. Good to see that the Ultra got banned. But it seems to me, and there may be someone listening who's a part of Ultra culture, and if that's you, get in touch, 0208 7020 558, put me to rights. But it seems to me that Ultras, be they in Italian football, Eastern European football, wherever, are bad news. What do Ultras mean? Effectively in practice, they mean football hooliganism, they mean racism, they mean setting off flares in the stadium and bad behaviour. I really cannot see the point. I'm all for passion, but ignorance is a step too far. And I think actually, and we're not perfect, we've said that a few times, I think this is a problem with Italy, isn't it? More broadly, they seem to be struggling on this in a way that we in England simply aren't.
Well, massively, and some of the abuse that Balotelli was getting is that he can never be completely Italian. What does that mean?
I had that. I had exactly that experience, not for me personally.
I was going to say, how Italian are you?
I'm a white guy, but I went on holiday with a mate of mine who's English but grew up in France, right? And so we went to the sort of little bit of France that he grew up in and met his mates from primary school. And I'd known them for a few years, and we sort of have a fairly awkward relationship because they don't speak very good English and I don't speak very good French, but we go, oui, Marseille, oui, PSG, oui, Arsenal, and we all get along. And
very Del Boy.
Very Del Boy, you know me. And the year before the World Cup, I said, oh, you must be really excited, that French squad, you know, you've got Pogba in there, you've got Mbappe, you've got Lacazette, you've got Sissoko. And he just went, yeah, no, they're not French. I'm not excited because they're not French. And I didn't realise what he meant, right? And so I went, what do you mean they're not French? Like Pogba, born in France, plays for France. He went, no, he's not French, he's black. And he said it like he was going, oh, that's not a cat, that's a dog. Like, you know, a complete statement of fact. Just think, what planet are these people living on? Personally, with all of these races, what I would like to do is I would like to put them all in buses by the 100, drop them on an island, and let them scrap it out Fortnite style. And coming up, we are talking gaming and bans.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
Can you save money on your car insurance? Chris did with a little help from a spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings.
I'm Chris from Leicestershire, a truck driver. I went on a spokesman's set, which was very straightforward and easy to use for an old git like myself, and saved over £300 on my car insurance.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
This is love sport.
Cheating in anything is just terrible. You should never do it. It's not acceptable. It's zero tolerance. It's just such a dumb thing to do. I should have paid more attention to the community rules and the TOS of Fortnite, and I just want to urge you guys all to review all of those terms of services and stuff so that nothing like this could ever happen to you, because it's actually so. Yeah, I genuinely don't know what to say. Like this, just knowing that I can never play Fortnite again, or create, or even create. Oh, it's crazy that I can never play Fortnite again, or even create content for you guys. It's obvious that I made a massive mistake. And of course, I would never think about doing anything like this again. When I was making those videos, I never thought about the consequence. I never thought about the consequences that could happen from me making those videos. I just thought about entertaining you guys.
Now that was FaZe Jarvis, the YouTube superstar who's been banned for life from Fortnite for cheating. That was from an apology video posted on his channel. Now there are two ways of looking at this, right? One is, this is a cheat. This is a fraud. This is an e-gaming doper weeping and we're pleased to see him suffer. Or this is a 17-year-old boy who has made a mistake, has been banned for life from the activity he loves as a hobby and relies on as a profession. And it's very, very hard to listen to. Someone who has a greater level of expertise on this than I have to say, is Andy Robertson, who is a gaming journalist for The Guardian, BBC, Mirror Tech, and owner of Family Gamer TV. Good afternoon, Andy. Thank you for joining us. What's your take on this? Is it all a bit harsh?
Well, I think when you see the video, it's this teenager who's just hugely upset with what's happened, and I think there's genuine emotion there. But at the same time, he has been making a lot of money from both esports and from YouTube. So I think the level of expectation of his behaviour should be higher if we want to treat esports players like athletes. I think that it is right to have a higher expectation, but I would have hoped that there would have been an adult in the room in his gaming and his video making that would have been advising him about terms of service, and obviously it wasn't.
Andy, obviously this hour we're talking about the big Saracens news, and they've had a huge fines. Can we see possibly maybe a case where he would have to potentially give some of his earnings back if he's misled some of the public? Could that be a case?
I mean, that's kind of probably outside my expertise, but I think what some of the pain he's feeling is that this is his daily routine, both in terms of making video, but also in terms of making a nice substantial income on YouTube. So I think that he's seeing all that kind of fall away. I think what's going to be interesting is to see how the game creator reacts to this. I mean, watching the video, it feels like it will be hard for them to keep that lifetime ban there forever.
Why though,
but,
Andy?
I know that people would say that they
Why
should.
is that hard? Just because he's upset? Because if I see a Lance Armstrong cry and go, "I'm so sorry, I don't get to ride a bike anymore," yeah, okay, tough. You cheated. Why is it different for this guy?
I think it's a new thing. It's a new sport that we're working out, and I think looking at I haven't looked into great detail, but he's saying that the cheating that he did was on videos he created for entertainment. It wasn't that he entered an esports competition and was secretly using an aimbot to win a big prize. It was something that on the surface of it looks like a credible mistake, and he's holding his hands up to it. So just, it's a family game and they want parents on side. So I think ethic needs to be sort of seen to be putting the right foot forward. But at the same time, I don't know what the right answer is, because if they do that, they'll be criticised for saying, well, you're encouraging people to cheat. So it is a tricky one.
It is a very tough one. Just for people listening at home, would you mind quickly clarifying what an aimbot is or what they can be?
Yeah, so this is a bit of software that you would install on your computer playing the game that then assists you so that you can then target the enemy players much easier, and it gives you a massive advantage. And it's something when my kids get shot in the game,
they shout, "He's got
an
aimbot!" I shout that every time, Andy. If someone is quicker on the draw than me, he's got an aimbot. It's the only explanation.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, they can't all be cheating, but and that's what they're trying to get away from. Is this they need a level playing field, because if you get beaten in Fortnite, you need to be like, "Oh, that was a good player," rather than, "Oh, is that guy hacking?" which is what kids will often say.
Very, very tough. You mentioned esports there, right? And there is this big drive towards taking gaming really seriously as a competitive enterprise, as a sport. And I know he was using the aimbot in non-competitive context. He was just playing normal online games. But is there an argument, if esports are sport, that this is basically doping?
I guess you could argue that this is practicing to with an aimbot, because he's not actually doping in a competition, if you're going to use that phrase. And I think we just need to tread a bit carefully, because this is kind of new territory, and it's easy to jump to assumptions about people's behaviour that when they're the first sort of person making this sort of mistake, I think there needs to be some leeway. But what probably needs to happen is that we need a more public airing of what is and isn't acceptable. And I think this overlaps with behaviour on YouTube. He has got a large following on YouTube, and he's been driven by that following to create entertaining content. And he thought, I know, it will be entertaining for me to use an aimbot. I'm a pro esports Fortnite player. Wouldn't it be funny if I used an aimbot? What will that be like? And he's thought about the entertaining side of it, but he hasn't thought about other consequences. And that, I think, is what you're seeing in his emotional response. So there's a genuine shock that it was like, oh my gosh, what's happened? I didn't mean to do it, but I did do it.
There are other miners who have actually found themselves in rather more hot water over aimbots, because Epic Games, who publish Fortnite, are notoriously tough on cheating. They took a miner to court for posting YouTube videos of cheats of this kind and selling cheating software. So this is an area where you can actually get yourself in quite serious trouble.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, again, the legal side of what is right and isn't right is the grey area. Now, I'm a supposed expert in video games, but I don't know the ins and outs of that. And
well,
so,
nobody does, do they, Andy? I mean, it's just ground we haven't had the opportunity to tread yet.
Yeah, so these kind of these rulings are being made as we speak. So again, I think that comes back to why we need a little bit more kind of generosity and leniency to people who are making mistakes, particularly if they're younger. But like we said, it's not a simple scenario.
Well, I know you're not just someone who's interested in gaming. You're someone who's interested in gaming for families and for kids. You run Family Gamer TV. With that in mind, this is a 17-year-old boy. We've heard him cry in his apology video. What do you think the response should be?
The response from the community, or the response from his parents, or from who?
The response from the community and from Epic Games, frankly. Should they kind of reel their punishment back?
I mean, I think Epic have got a difficult scenario. Looking at the video, my feeling is that they need to show some leniency here. And that's just my personal opinion. Just looking at the emotion on display, the reaction of the community in the comments, and the rhetoric on YouTube around his followers who'd like to see a bit of leniency. But what I think is important to take away from this is that parents have a role to play in guiding the behaviour of children online. And his mum's been making quotes on Facebook and talking about it. And so obviously is involved to some extent. But I think we all have a bit of responsibility to both understand what our kids are doing, be able to cheer them on when they're doing well, but also to be that adult in the room saying, do you know the ins and outs of this? And particularly if they start making a lot of money in these spaces, to think about it as an adult guiding presence there. Do you need to actually have some other assistance to work out what is and isn't legal? What are your protections here? And some of those questions that wouldn't come to mind to a young teenager who's stumbled into esports and YouTube and didn't really intend to potentially, but it started making quite a bit of money.
Andy, great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Andy Robertson there, who is a gaming journalist for The Guardian, BBC, Tech Media, and of course runs Family Gamer TV. Charlie, there is nothing more annoying when you're playing a game online, genuinely, than somebody cheating. It is so, so frustrating. So I appreciate you're 17. I appreciate we need some lenience. But 17 isn't that young, right? I appreciate you're not legally an adult, but this idea, when you're 17 and you're playing COD or FIFA or Fortnite or whatever, your mum's going to be in the room reminding you of page 43 of the terms and conditions. I just don't believe it.
I don't, but you say 17, you're not young, but you're still worldly young, if that makes sense. And I think that, it's all a learning curve, isn't it? I mean, and he's been caught. How many other people are doing it?
Well, quite a few, and I suspect he's got a bit unlucky here, if we're honest. More on this throughout the show, and more, of course, on this Saracen wage fallout.
This is Love Sport.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the mortgage, and the cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice, soon as I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Call now or search Macmillan Money Worries.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
We've got a top-class hour coming up right here on Posh Boys on Drive. We've let Charlie Hawkins into the room. It was a questionable decision that has, in that first hour, been proved absolutely brilliant. The man is on fire, and he's going to have to be. We are talking Saracens, the fallout from this wage scandal. We're going to be joined by Ciaran Mcguire, sports finance expert. Ciaran's been looking into the detail of this for us. How is their appeal going to go? Do they have a chance there? And Nicholas Bentner has spilled the beans. Apparently, before he was married, Eartzel was a bit of a womanizer. Don't go anywhere.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 4. Police say they're investigating multiple allegations of sexual assault against children as young as 2 at a nursery in Devon. A male worker was arrested after a complaint in July, but after studying hundreds of hours of CCTV, police have identified other potential victims. Detective Chief Inspector James Stock says around 100 families have been informed.
There may be some children who have joined after the investigation commenced and once that male employee was no longer working there. We wanted to ensure that every family who had a child at the setting had a level of contact from the investigation.
Workers on South Western Railway have called 27 days of strike action next month. Members of the RMT union will stage walkouts from the 2nd of December until New Year's Day, threatening chaos for commuters and Christmas travellers. The strikes are part of a long-running row about guards on trains. Former Chancellor Philip Hammonds announced he won't stand to be an MP at the general election. He says he's taken the decision with great sadness. Mr Hammond was among those stripped of the Conservative whip after rebelling against Boris Johnson's government to block a no-deal Brexit. An alternative to smear tests could soon revolutionise the way doctors diagnose cervical cancer. Researchers have developed a way to identify pre-cancer lesions via a simple urine test that women can take at home. They hope it'll improve participation. Comedian Karen Hobbs was diagnosed with cervical cancer at the age of 24.
About a third of women aged 25 to 29, the kind of first age group that gets screened, don't attend their appointments. And that's my age group, and I can't imagine getting that letter and not attending.
Mothercare is close to agreeing a deal to protect the pensions of its UK employees. It's understood schemes will be transferred to the group's global parent company, which has continued to trade profitably. And the Queen no longer wears fur. Her senior dresser Angela Kelly's revealed in a book that Her Majesty made the change this year. Any new outfits designed for the Queen will be using fake fur. That's the latest. I'm Andy Hayes.
Love Sport Radio, on digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Good afternoon. You are listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. That's me, Johnny Burrow, and the glorious Charlie Hawkins. Your top stories this afternoon. Saracens have been deducted 35 points and fined 5.3 million by Premiership Rugby. That's after they were found guilty of breaching salary cap rules. The Premiership and European champions will appeal the punishment, saying it is heavy-handed. Hellas Verona have banned a fan from attending games until 2030 for racially abusing Brescia forward Mario Balotelli. Luca Castellini, who's the head of the club's ultra group, had previously said that Balotelli could never be completely Italian because he was black. A reminder, Luca, he was born in Brescia. That makes him Italian. Raheem Sterling's representatives have been in Los Angeles to discuss an 8-part biopic of his life. This comes after headlines yesterday suggested he could be the subject of a mega bid from Real Madrid. And from the world of esports, an e-gamer going by the name of FaZe Jarvis has been banned from Fortnite for life for cheating using an aimbot. More on all of that throughout the show, but we are talking Saracens. And we're talking about the financial aspect of this in particular, because the situation is they've been found guilty, as things stand, of ameliorating, adding to their wage budget, which of course is capped in the Premiership at 7 mil, by various star players, including Farrell, including Itoje, of going into business, investing in the same companies as the owner of the club. Now, Saracens are appealing this, saying that's not a salary. It is an investment. They could gain money, they could lose money, and what this is the owner trying to set up players who he cares for as athletes and as people for the rest of their lives. Charlie, what do you make of this?
Well, that's the defence, isn't it? Trying to help people set up their lives. Owners, opposing sets of fans, as we mentioned, won't see it as that because they will see it as a loophole that has been exposed, and they're trying to take an advantage of that to help them in the league. They will liken that to the cups they have won, the European trophies that they have won. Could this have further implications down the road, Johnny? We will see, because as this one plays out, and it has been under investigation since April, 7 months this has gone on, and Saracens are obviously appealing. They're looking after their players, and obviously they're looking after their players in a way that, yes, it could earn their money, is that linked to salary and wages, but also they could lose money. I bet they wouldn't mention it there on Financial Fair Play because it could be a disadvantage for these players. The players didn't have to do this. They've taken that own risk. It does fall outside of that circle. It's a very interesting scenario, isn't it? An interesting way that it will only play forward.
It's true, and at the moment there are no charges brought against the players, no allegations of any wrongdoing. But there could still be serious ramifications for them, because if through the appeals process these investments and the money they have potentially made through them are found to be kind of part of their salary, then they're going to be taxed on it. HMRC are going to go, hang on a minute, Owen Farrell, you earn 750k a year already. You pay tax in that top band. We're going to backdate this a few years back to when you signed for Saracens, and we're going to tax you on that investment portfolio as well, on grounds that it's part of your earnings. So, scary time for them.
Very scary time. And you mentioned, Johnny, and I think the key figure is people will look to the 5.3 million fine, but 5.3 million, as you rightly said, in rugby is huge. In football, maybe not so much, in the millions that are spent there, the hundreds of millions, but in a year where you can only spend 7 million, 5.3 million fine. We talk about other fines that are currently going on in sports all over. This is it's crippling, Johnny, what this could do to Saracens. The implications, I'm interested to see what Ciaran Mcguire has to say on this, but where does Saracens go from here? We know they're appealing, but how does this change? Will they have to release players? Where do they go on? Because 5.3 million, and I'm always interested, we talked about it earlier when people are getting banned and suspended. How have they plucked this 5.3 million out? Where have they worked this statistical number out from?
Worth noting as well that those 35 points they've been deducted, that is the maximum point deduction you can be given in the Premiership. This is the definition of having the book thrown at them, and it is huge money. They've got serious stars on their books. Owen Farrow, Maro Itoje, the Vunipola brothers. 8 Saracens players played in that World Cup final. It's quite extraordinary. And you said the word crippling there. Now, it could be crippling. This is draconian in terms of rugby punishments. It's certainly a huge fine. It's 70% of their legal annual wage bill. But is it going to cripple them? Because they're such a huge club, right? They've won 4 of the last 5 Premiership rugbies. They're the current Premiership and European champions. And I think the comparison we got to draw here is Juventus, who had the Calciopoli scandal in the mid-noughties. Important to note, they were found guilty of match fixing, which is much, much more serious than anything that Saracens are alleged and, of course, deny having done. But let's look at the Juve squad from 06-07, right? They've been relegated to Serie B, the Italian Championship. You'd think that if you're an elite player, you'd go, well, my money's dropping, the club have dropped, there's a scandal, my name's being dragged through the mud, I am out of here. Well, how does this squad list sound to you? Gianluigi Buffon, Giorgio Chiellini, Valery Bohinov, Alessandro Del Piero, the captain, Pavel Nedved,
legend,
Ballon d'Or winning Pavel Nedved, Balzaretti, David Trezeguet, Jean-Alain Boumsong. Incredible players who just went, you know what, fine, I'll do a year in Serie B. Could we see this with Saracens? If they were to go down, and they won't, but if they were to, might a Farrell, might the Vunipolas just go, yeah, we'll stick out a year, possibly because Nigel Ray, the owner, has been good to them with this kind of support.
Very good to him. And you mentioned Juventus, and what a comparison it is, Johnny, because not only were they relegated to Serie B, but they were stripped of their titles. Could we see this now for Saracens? They were stripped of the 04-05 title. They were downgraded to last place in the 05-06 championship. And let's not remember, we're talking fines. Let's not just compare that as well. Juventus fined, Johnny, €75,000 to a club like Juventus. Then we're seeing Saracens fined 5.3 million, €75,000. Nothing to Juventus, pocket change, you know, literally a drop in the ocean. They appealed, they couldn't appeal against the relegation. They started off, they were going to be minus 30 points in Serie B, went down to 17 points, and they only started with minus 9. So they managed to appeal that. We're not sure how Saracens will try to appeal, but it's huge there, the match fixing. And obviously even on recent shores, look at Rangers' financial fair play. They went down and they've just come back up, and now they find themselves in a title race of their own. Saracens in clear danger themselves.
I think there is a point there about if you're a big enough club, you are going to recover. But as you say, the financial impact is still pretty crippling. And we're joined on the line by Ciaran Mcguire, who is a sports finance expert. Ciaran has been digging into the detail of this for us. Ciaran, good afternoon. Thanks for your time and your expertise as well. How massive a blow is a fine of over £5 million for Saracens?
It's about a third of their total income. So therefore it is fairly significant. But they are backed by Nigel Ray, who is incredibly wealthy, so he can certainly absorb that. But I think it's more of an embarrassment issue from the club's perspective, and also the points deduction, and the fact that the critics will say that their success in recent years has been tainted.
Ciaran, we've been talking about, we've been comparing it to other teams and other sports. You mentioned their total income. Why is the fine so heavy? Why is this punishment so severe when we're seeing teams like Barcelona only get fined €300 for the Griezmann transfer?
I think in respect of Barcelona, it was just a nominal issue. over a technicality. The fact that the fine is so significant is because Premiership Rugby have taken the view that this was effectively a concerted effort by Saracens to try to identify loopholes in the rules and exploit them. And they want to not only punish Saracens for that, but also to send out a very strong signal to any other clubs in Premier League Rugby that this won't be acceptable. And remember, all the other clubs, I mean, the 12 clubs in the league, they're all shareholders effectively in the Premiership, and therefore they will be monitoring this very carefully.
Ciaran, is there any risk that Saracens could have to offload some of their big-name players? And how damaging would a potential relegation be?
I think the relegation issue would be the one which is most significant, because if you want to both retain and attract the best players in rugby, you've got to be playing at the elite level. And clearly relegation would mean a drop down to what is not going to be particularly competitive for rugby for players of that calibre. So I think that would be a significant issue. There would be a drop in income, which would be very significant as well. And there could be issues in terms of sponsors who feel that they don't want to be associated with a tainted brand. And they might have good behaviour clauses in their sponsorship contracts, which will allow them to walk away.
Ciaran, with financial fair play and salary caps, does it sort of likely lead to this sort of behaviour? Are they helpful, or should they be scrapped? Because we could see more of this, couldn't we?
Yes, I mean, certainly there's issues in other sports, and we're fully aware of what's been happening in the EFL with regards to the sale of stadia. I think it all comes down to the attitudes of owners. If the owners buy into the need for some form of cost restraint or some form of break-even approach to sport, then there's not a problem. It's where the owners feel that perhaps there is a way of circumventing the rules, or perhaps they feel that the rules are unfair in the first place and they should be allowed to invest as much as they wish, then they are perhaps tempted to look at issues which are on the edges of compliance of the rules, and then sometimes you'll get the benefit of the doubt, and sometimes the authorities will take a view that the rules have been manipulated to too great an extent and will therefore initiate some form of penalty.
So the situation here is essentially that various of Saracens' star players are shareholders, or rather senior shareholders, in companies which are also invested in by the owner Nigel Ray, right? And the allegation is that the money they make from those investments is a kind of way of bumping up their salaries, which Saracens deny. From the findings so far and from the investigation that you've been conducting, how above board was this activity?
I'm a finance guy rather than a lawyer, and I think it really comes down to looking at individual clauses in the contracts. If you take a look at the salary cap regulations, and there's about 50 or 60 pages of them, it is very specific that it's not just salaries but benefits in kind provided to players by the club that are taken into consideration when determining whether or not a club has breached the £7 million a year wage cap. Now, if the owner of Saracens, if Nigel Ray has been involved in other businesses involving the players, and if the players have not got perhaps a history of that type of business activity, then they could effectively be seen to be sleeping partners and just picking up the profits from those businesses without contributing towards the management, and therefore it's an indirect form of payment via somebody connected with Saracens Rugby Club to one of the playing staff.
The defence that Nigel Ray made to that argument, all the way back in May, by the way, before they'd been found guilty of any infraction, was that with an investment, these players risk losing money as well as gaining money, so it should be considered as distinct from the salary. Does that make any sense at all?
Well, there's always a risk in all businesses, but sometimes you can create a contract for a business whereby parties benefit from the profits and are effectively protected in terms of losses. Looking at these businesses, they do seem to be property orientated. Property is a fairly strong asset in the sense that prices tend to go up rather than down. And also, I think you've got to look at the nature of the investments put in by the players. It could be that their contributions in shares were relatively low costs to them, so therefore they wouldn't have actually substantially suffered any losses. And the other form of investments could be coming from loans from other parties who are more likely to suffer if the value of the properties go down.
Ciaran, we know Saracens are obviously appealing today's findings and ruling. How long will that take place? When can that take place, and what happens next for Saracens? Is this another 7 months? Is this ongoing issue just going to really rumble on into the new season?
Well, clearly it's we've only just started the season, so it's in nobody's interests, and including that of other clubs as well, for this to be a drawn-out affair, because clubs will be looking at first of all the relegation issue, and also when they are playing Saracens, I think everybody needs to be clear as to whether or not the match is significant, because if Saracens are starting with this points deduction, effectively it's going to be nigh on impossible for them to survive, and therefore the opponents might feel that they don't need to put out their full team because the result is of less importance. A lot will depend upon the nature of the decision, and looking at the small print, Saracens lawyers clearly will be taking this into consideration and will be advising Nigel Ray and the club accordingly. Then it's a case of the lawyers will be pinging emails to each other, and also the Premiership Rugby.
I think that sound suggested that Ciaran has disappeared off Skype. I think that was a Skype disappearing noise. I think we've lost him. We could try and get him back in a moment's time, but I think we will leave it there. Fantastic to speak to Ciaran Mcguire, our resident sports finance expert. I just wonder whether salary caps are by definition more likely to lead to this kind of behaviour, Charlie. In football, you've got FFP, financial fair play, but that's a kind of broad restriction, right? It doesn't say, here is the most you can pay for your players. It's relative to how much you earn. A flat across the board salary cap is more extreme and more equalising. You're trying to level the playing field, but are you always going to lead to people looking for that loophole?
Well, it's very interesting because in NFL, the American football, they also have a salary cap, but it goes up every year due to inflation, a little bit by 10%. It's currently $180 million per year. We say rugby, $7 million a year. It's huge numbers for the NFL. There's no one trying to get through that loophole, and it's done exactly what you just said there, Johnny. It's equalised it. We're seeing every team can spend the same amount of money, and no one has used loopholes to try to, because it's all about sustainability for the clubs and the league to grow.
Well, it's Posh Boys and Geezers on Love Sport Drive, and coming up, Nicholas Bentner appears to be both.
Love Sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Henna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
When looking for the best possible deal for his car insurance, Jim went on a spokesmansaid.com and saved hundreds.
I'm Jim. I'm a radio presenter based in Glasgow. I couldn't believe how expensive the car insurance for our Citroen C4 Picasso was going to be from my existing insurer. I went on a Spokesman Said and saved an incredible £600. Just amazing.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
If you're driving on a motorway, and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle, or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
Super Nick, Super Nick, Super Nick,
Super Nicholas Bentner.
It's a chant that rang. We didn't practice that, by the way. I'm seriously impressed by Charlie Hawkins. It's a chant that rang around the Emirates for many years. Normally ironically, but I was actually there, and this is my...
Was that not ironic?
It's always ironic on this show, Charlie. But I was actually there. It's my one claim to fame when Nicholas Bentner scored a Champions League hat-trick back in 2009 against Porto. The reason why we're chanting raucously in the Love Sports studio is because Nicholas Bentner, this is a sentence I never thought I'd say, Nicholas Bentner has written a book, the classic tell-all autobiography, and rather than going Michael Owen style and picking a fight with Alan Shearer, he's revealed his own bad behaviour, not least towards former coach Arsene Wenger. Worth noting, before we relay to you what Bentner supposedly did, Wenger brought Bentner to Arsenal as a teenage boy and turned him into a very wealthy man and a superstar. So he has quite a lot to thank him for. But he revealed that once he was older, no longer a wonder kid, rather out of favour, a deadline day move to Crystal Palace fell through. Because
he should be thanking him.
Well, quite. Arsenal failed to sign a striker. They thought they were going to sign somebody, no doubt, quite average from the French league, and they failed to get him in. So Wenger said, sorry, mate, you can't go to Palace. We need you as backup. You can go next year. And Bentner, in his own words, called him a lot of words that I'm afraid I'm not able to say live on the radio, but I'm sure you can join the dots. Really abusing his manager. Extraordinary, Charlie, and an extraordinary insight, because I think, particularly with these statesmen like Wenger, you don't think of anyone giving them any grief. But do you reckon this happens more often than we think?
In what sense?
In the sense of a player turning around and going, you know what, Arsene, I think you're an effing this and an effing that.
Oh, I think it definitely went on, yeah. We just never... That's part and parcel of most sports, isn't it? Especially football. You're out of favour, you knock on the manager's door, you're trying to get in the lineup, you're probably calling him all names on the pitch, he's playing you in a position where you don't want to play. And in Bentner's and Arsene Wenger's case, Arsene Wenger was absolutely right, because Nicholas Bentner was useless. I had a season to get older, and the man, it was terrible. You'd never had the class and quality that the guy ought to play for Arsenal. He wanted to wear 52 for a reason I don't know. I mean, he couldn't do anything. Do you know what I mean? He couldn't hit a barn door.
He's had a very lively through years, because he went from quite literally dating the Princess of Denmark to being in a Danish prison quite quickly. So a roller coaster few years for Nicholas Bentner. He's now at Copenhagen. He hasn't scored any goals so far this season.
That's a surprise.
But his goal record, Charlie, at points in his career has been very good. 24 and 108 for Arsenal, which is not shocking in the lead, considering...
For a team like Arsenal, create all them chances, 1 in 4, it's terrible.
Off the bench a lot. 30 in 81 for Denmark, which is a decent international record. So you're saying that players do swear at managers, do turn around and go, you know what, Fergie, I'm not having this from you. And you reckon this is going on?
I don't necessarily say I'm not having it, but of course they do. They say, I don't agree with this coach, I don't agree with that gaffer, you're so-and-so wrong on this one, why ain't I playing, he's no good, I'm just as good as him. It goes on in every line of work, you know. It's a heated, passionate game. I'm sure it went on. I'm sure it went on in worse cases under Wenger, but I am actually, a big pro-Wenger fan. There aren't many of them left. Well, that makes two of us. Johnny, let me tell you, we are certainly in the minority.
I'll tell you, I met him.
What?
Had the most bizarre situation of my life, right?
Another reason I can fall in love with you.
So Arsene Wenger's daughter was in my year at university.
This is a bit too early for this story.
And I didn't know that she was Arsene Wenger's daughter.
Yeah, all right.
Until I started going out with her best mate, at which point I found out that she was Arsene Wenger's daughter and realised I was going out with the wrong girl. But I was, as a result, at Arsene Wenger's daughter's 21st, right, with this girl who was my girlfriend, who knew that I was a huge Arsenal fan, but Wenger's daughter at uni didn't go by Wenger because she didn't want everyone to know she was Wenger's daughter. She didn't want the Johnny Burrows of this world going, hello, how are you? Really nice to meet you. I'm a nice boy. Can I talk to your dad about his transfer policy? So I was told by my then girlfriend that I was not allowed to talk to her about anything to do with Arsenal. Then I was at this party and Wenger was there. And so I turned to my ex and I went, that's his Arsene Wenger. And he was Arsenal manager at the time. I said, that's Wenger. I've got to go and say hi. She said, if you go and say hi, you are in serious trouble. You cannot go and say hi. And I, as the whipped little kid that I was like, our producer has just suggested I broke up with her. I didn't. I did go and say hi.
Good man.
But I didn't reveal that I was an Arsenal fan, and I pretended I didn't know who he was or what he did. And so I went up to him and I was going, oh, hi, nice to meet you.
You've got no backbone.
Je suis Arsène. I went, oh, right, what do you do? Oh, I'm in football. Oh, really? I don't really like football. And my mind was just screaming, tell him to sign a striker. We've needed one for a decade. Arsène, buy a striker. So I nearly went full Bentner, frankly, in arguing with him. But it's not just Wenger that Bentner has revelations about. He's also got revelations about Mesut Özil. He said that, and I should stress, Özil is now a married man. He's married to a former Miss Turkey, no less, and this is before he was married. So Mrs. Özil, if you're listening, he's a very well-behaved boy. But apparently Özil turned up at Arsenal and went straight up to Bentner on his first day and said, I hear you're the man to talk to round here if I want a night out. And Nicholas Bentner coyly went, yeah, that's not completely untrue. What do you want to know? They went out 3 times in Özil's first week, right? And maybe if he stopped going out, that's why the performances have dried up as well. But Bentner says that Özil knew, and I quote, how to fire it in nightclubs. I don't know quite what that means. And that he loved ladies, which is fairly easier to translate.
A playmaker on the pitch, a playmaker off the field. Mesut Özil, ladies and gentlemen.
Creating chances for his teammates, possibly.
Creative genius, offensive, stylist. The man is nothing but flames. Look at him. He just knows where to slick that pass through.
Yeah, can always find space, I've heard, Mesut. I just love this idea of Nicholas Bentner being the kind of Arsenal tour guide. Oh, you want a big night out,
He calls himself the concierge of the Arsenal teammates, telling them where the hotspots are for the Arsenal nightlife. I absolutely love it. There should have been the programme. Forget Sterling. This is the Amazon All or Nothing documentary I want to see. This is the coat trip with Nicholas Bentner.
Yeah.
Come on, lads, faces tonight. It's 2 for 1. Happy hour goes on for 3 hours.
Made in Chelsea with Bentner and Özil.
Oh.
It's quite extraordinary. In the match day programme, we could forget about the captain notes as well. Rather than Granit Xhaka going, I'm really sorry, I'm not very good at football. We could just have Bentner going, yeah, so on Tuesday night we're in this nightclub and Özil, and on Thursday night we're in this nightclub and Henri. They clearly had a very good time.
Yeah, amazing. Can you imagine in the programme notes, it's a really embarrassing situation for Özil this weekend because he's invited both the girl we met on Tuesday and the one from Wednesday is also in the press box. Quite a scene up at the stands. Will he make the substitution?
You know what, Charlie? That reminds me of a different story at university, which I'm not going to tell you live on the radio. Coming up, we're talking Chelsea.
Love sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
This is Lionel, another very happy person who saved themselves money at a spokesmansaid.com.
Hi, I'm Lionel from Peacehaven. I took note of what the spokesman said and I saved £484 per year on my energy, and I recommend everybody does the same.
A spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings. Compare, switch and save with a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realize that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
It's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. Johnny Burrow, Charlie Hawkins and producer Laurie Callis, who has your latest sporting headlines and weather.
Yeah, I certainly do, Johnny. Well, the first story, of course, we've been talking about a lot in the first hour, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it for the rest of the programme because it is a big one, and Saracens have been deducted 35 points and fined $5.3 million by Premiership Rugby, and that's after being found guilty of breaching salary cap rules. The Premiership and European champions will appeal the punishment, saying it's heavy-handed, following a 9-month investigation into owner Nigel Ray and the club's players. The 35-point deduction would still have seen Sarries avoid relegation, though, in the last 3 seasons. Hellas Verona have banned a fan from attending games until 2030, and that's for racially abusing Brescia forward Mario Balotelli. Luca Castellini, who's the head of an Ultras group, said that Balotelli could never be completely Italian in an interview on Monday. That's despite Balotelli being born in Palermo. Raheem Sterling's representatives have been in Los Angeles to discuss an 8-part biopic of his life. This comes after headlines yesterday suggested he could be the subject of a player plus cash bid from the 13-time European champions Real Madrid. Sonny Bill Williams is set to join Super League newcomers Toronto Wolfpack on a 2-year deal. The New Zealand crosscode star will sign a reported £9 million contract, making him the richest player in rugby league and rugby union history. Williams was a member, of course, of that All Black squad who finished 3rd at the Rugby World Cup in Japan. And Saviv Richards has told Love Sport he's frustrated the West Indies didn't do more to secure the services of Sussex bowler Jofra Archer at international level. The fast bowler was instrumental in England's ODI World Cup win earlier this year, after the ECB changed rules to allow Barbadian-born Archer to be picked last November. And in the weather, Johnny, it's that word that's on everyone's lips, the S word. Not Shearer, no, it's snow. But there's none yet.
So Geordie. You're painfully Geordie.
If I can get Shearer in, I'm going to get it in.
Posh Boys on Drive, they're giving me a geezer and a Geordie.
Get in.
Where's Guy Watts?
Oh, there's only one Alan Shearer. But there's no snow either yet. It's light showers and cloud for the rest of the day. Temperatures shouldn't be creeping much below 10, which is good to hear. But tomorrow the highs are 10. Sunny intervals, light winds, no more rain tomorrow, but it's really getting quite wintry and unpleasant.
Winter is coming. Wintry and unpleasant. Cheers, Laurie. Now we're going to talk a bit of Chelsea. They face Ajax in the Champions League tonight, which I think could be a tough one. But we're hearing they're appealing the transfer ban that currently stands for 2 windows. They're taking it to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. And if it's overturned, they're going to immediately go on a £150 million transfer binge to bring in Timo Werner, the highly rated Red Bull Leipzig striker, Ben Chilwell, the Leicester City left back, and Wilfried Zaha, the Palace winger. These are top players, but are they actually what the club need?
I don't believe it. I think it's fake news at its best. I think Chelsea is so interesting. As soon as they want to appeal this ban, as soon as they're on a transfer ban, and now when they appeal it and they win it and they can spend money, they're going to go and splash the cash. I don't think they are. I don't think this is the Chelsea of new. I think this will not be how Frank Lampard goes about his business in Chelsea. I think this is an easy headline. Why bring in those kids? Why have the success he is having with those kids and then go and splurge on superstars, change the culture of the dressing room, change the attitude of the dressing room? Yes, will they add pieces? Will they go and spend 150 million? No, I don't believe they will.
And being linked to a striker, right? You got Michy Batshuayi, who looks good off the bench, and Tammy Abraham, who's starting every game and scoring in virtually every game. I do not understand the rationale of doing that. Zaha, possibly. I mean, you got Pedro and Willian ageing. Could be a time to reinvest and get a bit of youth in the side.
Oh, I feel like I've just rained on the parade there, rained on the segment saying they're not going to spend all that money in cash. But I truly believe that this is a new phase, a new dawn that Chelsea are entering under Lampard, in a side that they want to bring the youth through, and they are, and they're playing, you know, we've got players like Abraham, Mason Mount, who are going to be the face of this club for the next 5-10 years. I don't think they want to litter it with Galacticos and people who want to be there for the wrong reasons, i.e. the money. I don't think this will be Lampard and Chelsea style going forward.
Well, David Chidgey is a great man. He's heavily involved with the Chelsea Fancast and, of course, the Chelsea Fan Show right here on Love Sport. He joins us on the line now. Good afternoon, Chidge. Thanks for joining us. We're talking about this reported £150 million transfer binge Chelsea are about to go on. Is this true?
Well, Johnny B, Charlie, how lovely to speak to you both. I have to say that the most wonderful thing about the transfer ban, other than the fact that it's allowed us to bring the youth through, is that we haven't had to put up with these inane, puerile loads of BS that you get in the press every week about who we're supposed to be buying. So I don't believe any of it. I really don't. Not until I see them, the whites of their eyes grinning with Marina Granovskaya. But I thought Charlie's point was absolutely bang on. I mean, I think, look, realistically, you don't buy any decent players in the January window anyway. Particularly if you're playing in the Champions League, because they'll be cup tied. I think if the transfer ban gets lifted, whether it be January, which I doubt, or in the summer, which I expect, well, obviously they would have filled the ban by then, they will buy some big names. But what they need to do is to buy, I would go for world-class players, but to replace players that are perhaps getting to the end of their natural shelf life. So to complement what they already have, which, as we're seeing, is a very, very good, well-balanced side with some fantastic youth and some very good senior players.
Chelsea being linked with a striker in Timo Werner. When you've got Tammy Abraham scoring goals the way he is, when you've got Michy Batshuayi actually looking pretty bright off the bench, do you need a centre-forward?
That's a good point. And don't forget, we've got a World Cup winner in Olivier Giroud sitting on the bench, who you two both would have loved to bits, no doubt, when he was an Arsenal player.
Absolutely.
And he can't get a kick at the moment, and rightly so. Tammy Abraham's, pretty much top of the goal-scoring league, top goal scorers league at the moment. And Batshuayi scored 3 and 3. So, we're in a good position. It's a tough one. I mean, I think that there are certainly, holes in the side that we need to fill. And I do expect people like Pedro to possibly move on in the summer. Maybe even Willian, although Willian's having a phenomenally good season so far and is absolutely integral to the side at the moment. But there are holes to fill, so I do expect them to do just that in the summer. But I think if we have a dearth of anything at the moment, it is genuinely world-class players. I mean, Kante definitely is a world-class player, but beyond that, it's hard to say any of them are world-class. They may develop into being world-class, but it's going to take a few years yet for some of these youngsters.
Chidge, it's always good to hear your voice, your dulcet tones about Chelsea. I wanted to ask you, Chidge, because at the minute, maybe quite strange for Chelsea fans, they're getting a lot of praise, they're playing the youngsters, they're playing fantastic football. Isn't it going well for Frank? And knowing you as I do, you find this quite annoying, don't you, people being nice about Chelsea, giving them all the credit? You want it to go back to the old days, surely?
Well, you are a cheeky boy, you are. Look, I do have I find it really quite amusing that we suddenly seem to be the flavour of the month. Everybody loves us. And I have talked about this to a lot of people. And the thing seems to be that Frank Lampard is such a well-liked, former player and individual. People like Frank Lampard. So he's kind of made us a very acceptable face at the moment. I have to be honest and say if opposition fans, like the club that I support, then I think we must be doing something wrong. Because I used to absolutely relish it when Mourinho was in charge. We were absolutely loathed for being negative or winning, basically. That's what it all boiled down to. So I think that when opposition fans like your club, it's because they don't see you as a threat. So I have an issue with that.
Chidge, you're in Champions League action against Ajax tonight. It's a big game that we'll come on to in just a moment. I want to pick up on Mason Mount's comments. The young midfielder says Chelsea are ready to be top contenders in any competition in world football, including the CL. Is he right?
Well, I would be amazed if Chelsea can go really deep into the competition. I think they might struggle if they come up against a really, really big player on form. But at the end of the day, Johnny, it's a cup competition. And, I've watched, better Chelsea sides than this one, be very unlucky and not get anywhere near winning it. And I've seen one of the poorest Chelsea sides per se go off and win it because we had a lot of luck. And, Tottenham got to a final last year, so anything can happen, can't it?
Hey, there it is. Only took 5 minutes. Chidge, in terms of this game tonight, there's drama on and off the pitch. We're told Ajax fans banned from Stamford Bridge, and we're hearing of a horde, as per the Daily Mail, a horde of friendly Dutch people trying to get into the stadium. Are you expecting any kind of fireworks?
Well, it is bonfire night, Guy Fawkes night, so I'm expecting lots of fireworks. But to do with the football, who can say? I mean, I heard that. They'd normally get an allocation of 2,500, something like that. And I think a lot of them had already booked their trips over. And if they're anything like Chelsea fans, they'll probably go anyway. I think there were rumours that they wanted to go and watch Leighton or something. But,
yes, I heard that.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. But, I mean, look, inevitably, some will try and get in. It's the nature of football fans, isn't it? What I can tell you is that I got a message from the club. We all got emailed that you need to take ID with you. So it sounds like the club are going to be cracking down on it and not taking any chances. Of course, we had a problem last year in the Europa Cup, if you remember, when a lot of Eintracht Frankfurt fans got into at least three of the stands. But I think that had a lot to do with people selling off their tickets, and a lot of the corporate sponsors were doing that, because a lot of them got into the corporate areas, and it caused quite a bit of ag. So Chelsea will be very, very keen not to see a repeat of that, I think.
They'll be making
sure. We'll see. I mean, who knows?
Making sure you're David Chidgey, not Van Chidgey, just for
no
one
David
night.
No David Van Chidgeys are allowed.
No
exactly.
David Van Chidgeys will be getting in your seat. Just finally, it's a big game. You're doing very well in the Champions League so far. Can you get all 3 points?
Well, we can. I think we've proved that we're capable of it. I mean, the performance against Valencia was nothing worse than naive, I think. And the reality is, had Barkley put that penalty away, we would have come away with a fairly honourable draw. But we did look naive. The counterpoint to that was the performance against Ajax, where it was an incredibly sure European away performance against a side that had not lost at home in the Champions League for 5 years. So it was without doubt the best performance and result of the season for Frank.
David Chidgey there. We seem to have lost him, of the Chelsea Fan Show and the Chelsea Fancast. Great to talk to you. Something wrong with the signal there, I think. Well, Chelsea, of course, not wasting any money in the transfer market, but are you throwing away your hard-earned cash on expensive energy bills? Keep the price down when you turn the heating up. You could be saving hundreds by switching to a cheaper deal. A spokesmansaid.com compares all the best deals on the market to find you the one that saves the most cash. Find the cheapest energy tariffs for you. Go to a spokesmansaid.com and start saving today. Charlie, are Chelsea going to do it tonight?
Yeah, I believe they are. I think they're in terrific form at the minute, Chelsea. Obviously, the clean sheets are a bit of a concern. They're conceding goals. But I think they've really turned the corner, haven't they? You know, slow to start. Obviously, that crushing defeat to Man United on the opening day of the season, which did obviously flatter Man United somewhat. But I believe Chelsea are really in form at the minute, and they're probably even more so flying under the radar, not just because of that transfer ban and not just because they were slow starters, but because Leicester are doing so well. Everyone's talking about Leicester as that third team behind City and Liverpool and gate crashing this title race in top four. I actually believe Chelsea are really up there at the minute, flying in the Champions League, flying in the league. People better start paying them slightly more attention.
I think they absolutely should, but are they in that title race? That's what we're talking about next.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in
Tenna men. Keep control.
You're in?
No.
AsSpokesmanSaid.com is a leading price comparison website that allows you to compare every energy tariff on the market in seconds. We have more deals than any other comparison website offering energy prices, and our impartial independent switching service is free of charge. Nearly 50% of UK households have switched bills, and there are hundreds to be saved. Visit AsSpokesmanSaid.com, as recommended in The Guardian, The Times, and The Sun. AsSpokesmanSaid.com.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
This is Love Sport.
I love a war of words. I love a title race, but I love the wind-up that comes with it. Whether it's Kevin Keegan, I will love it if we beat them, or any of the Rafa total meltdown. Fact. Or Mourinho, 3 times. I don't know why he's German, but there we go.
You forgot the biggest one.
What's that?
It's Rebecca Vardy's account.
It's always the biggest. It's always the biggest. Wagatha Christie. And Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola are 2 men we think of as being rather better behaved. These are footballing gentlemen who would never lower themselves to such levels. And I think the fact that they've done just that this week shows how much pressure both of them are under, how important it is for both Liverpool and Manchester City that they should win the title. Fair to say that Pep Guardiola started it last week, and we'll start there. He chose to praise, ironically, Liverpool forward Sadio Mane's ability, not as a footballer, but as a diver. Do you think that veiled criticism is fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair, and I make him absolutely right. He should have done this weeks ago. Johnny, like yourself, I love the war of the words. I want this side drama, this soap opera to continue. It should have happened weeks ago. I don't want them to disguise Finlay Val Diggs. Get it out in the open. Let us know what you think of him. Let's really kick this title race off, because my favourite time growing up watching the title race was when it was Arsenal Man United. Of course, that was when Arsenal was back in it. But it was Ferguson, it was Wenger, it was Roy Keane, it was Patrick Vieira. They were in that very small single-file player tunnel at Highbury. We remember the shenanigans. Pascal Segan, Patrick Vieira, they all had the Vicks on the Arsenal shirt so they could breathe easier in the game. Every kid wanted to do that as well. And it was massive. Every touch, every word, every syllable uttered mattered, and that's what we need. I don't want Mr. Nice Guy in a title race. We want to beat you, and we want to desperately, brutally annihilate you and win this title race. I cannot get enough of it. Don't give me this Finlay...
Nicholas Bentner on a night out.
Yeah, well, that's another story. But that's what we want, Johnny. You say, sarcastic there, praising Mane. Don't worry about sarcasm, Pep. Get it out there. Get it out in the open. I want a bit of fisticuffs on the touchline.
I don't know. I quite like it more when it comes in sass. And Klopp has gone for sass as well. He said, I promise not to mention tactical fouls, thereby mentioning tactical fouls. You would have to say Manchester City do more tactical fouls than everybody else. Pep Guardiola denies that they work on it in training, but they absolutely do. They have to. Look at the stats. They have made more fouls in the opposition half, i.e. stopping the breakaway, than anybody else. 69% of their overall fouls happen in the opposition half. So as soon as the other team win the ball and look to break, I'm going to grab your shirt and haul you back. That's what we saw Phil Foden get sent off for the other night. 2 little yellow cards where he was just putting the boot in on a man trying to start a counter.
Well, Johnny, just like the war of the words, I love nothing more than a tactical foul. I don't think England, the national side, do it enough.
Oh, really?
I tell you what.
You like a cheat?
No, hey.
That's all right, Charlie. There's no judgment here.
Look, I'm 17. I've made a mistake. I'm going to put out a video on YouTube.
I can't believe I'm never going to play Fortnite again.
It was an honest mistake. But you say tactical fouls and you say cheat. I hate that word follows cheat, because this is a huge part of the game. This is gamesmanship. Is it a cheat when you're stopping an opposing side score? You're stopping them from 1-on-1. It's part of the game. You say tactical. We've seen it in other leagues. We're just the last and the slowest to catch on. Everyone else does it. It's a part and parcel of the game. It is certainly not, in my book, cheating. That is for one. If Klopp can cry about that, he can go on. Pep does it. They are the 2 times league champions. It happens all over, and they're doing it, and they do it better than anyone else.
Do you think that we're going to get to a point where we consider tactical fouls and diving as skills? We're going to talk about players who are brilliant at running with the ball, brilliant passers, and brilliant divers, brilliant cynical foulers, just becomes part of the fabric of the game.
Only if we can cut to a live shot of Len Goodman rating the dive as it happens. No, I think diving, no, that's completely simulation diving. I hate it. It's a part of the game that we should scrap and you should be booked for it. But tactical fouls, you know, just wasting a bit of time, soaking up a bit of time, clock management, these are integral parts of what leaders, veterans do of a game. You know, they very wisely know how to just waste that little bit of time. Would you say the tactical foul is almost the same as someone bringing on a late substitution? 30 seconds, 1 minute, wasting crucial minutes of a game. That's what a tactical substitution is. They know that that player's not going to make an impact in the 96th minute. They're wasting time, making sure that they change who takes the throwing, wasting time. These are all clever little facets of the game that people who do them well. Remember the game? There was one game. Sorry, Johnny, now I'm rambling. You've really got me going. Do you remember there was one game, Everton against Man United before, right? And Everton were winning 1-0, and it was when the multi-ball system was used, where as soon as a ball went out
multi-ball
overtime, there was you've completely lost me. Is that when the ball went into the crowd, quickly a steward would bring another ball, so the game didn't lose any crucial
Hazard
seconds.
Would kick the ball boy, and then we carry on.
Hey, I'm telling a story here. And then what happened was, so there would be 30 balls in use. As soon as one went out, another one, so the game would never lose no seconds. Everton were 1-0 up, 5 minutes to go. They went round and picked 29 of the balls up, and they went to a one-ball system. The Everton player booted the ball into the stands. It took a minute to get it back. Man United didn't get that time back. This is all elements into game management, Johnny.
Well, when we're talking about gamesmanship, or perhaps even cheating, it brings us back to one of our top stories of the day. The YouTube superstar banned from Fortnite for life for cheating using an aimbot. We had FaZe Jarvis, who's got 2 million subscribers. He's been banned from the game for the rest of his life for using this aimbot. The question now is, was he bending the rules? Is this gamesmanship? Is this intelligent use of available resources? Or is he a cheat? Let's hear from him now.
Cheating in anything is just terrible. You should never do it. It's not acceptable. It's zero tolerance. It's just such a dumb thing to do. I should have paid more attention to the community rules and the TOS of Fortnite, and I just want to urge you guys all to review all of those terms and services and stuff so that nothing like this could ever happen to you, because it's actually so I genuinely don't know what to say. Like this, just knowing that I can never play Fortnite again, or create you know, it's crazy that I can never play Fortnite again or even create content for you guys. You know, it's obvious that I made a massive mistake. And of course, I would never think about doing anything like this again. You know, when I was making those videos, I never thought about the consequence. I never thought about the consequences that could happen from me making those videos. I just thought about entertaining you guys.
FaZe Jarvis there, the disgraced and banned YouTuber, apologising for using an aimbot on Fortnite. I think it's quite a cleverly calculated apology, Charlie, if I'm being cynical. He urges his viewers...
If you're being cynical.
if, and it's a big if, he urges his viewers to review the terms and conditions to make sure they're not behaving. Big double thumbs up from Epic Games. You're encouraging others not to cheat. You're apologising. You're recognising the error of your ways. Please let me back on Fortnite. I won't cheat again. But you've just said you like the tactical fouls from Man City. You like exploiting little loopholes, perhaps, although they deny it, Saracens style. So is that what FaZe Jarvis is doing? He's realised that he can gain a competitive advantage. He's taken that competitive advantage, and he's part of the game.
Well, no, because I understand where you're going with it, and I do completely agree. But that's maybe when we come back to the diving element. That is pure, you know, we say cheating at its finest. Tactical game management would maybe be if he was, you know, just waiting out in areas, sniping and trying to get the players and completely getting rid of them. It's a bit of like a camper almost in the game mode sense. So that would be game management. He's waiting. He's not really doing much to have his success. I think this is a different element of that, and you're not being cynical, you're being right. Is he being genuine in that apology? But he is young and he is creating an apology. We'd soon be up in arms if he wasn't saying an apology. Oh, he isn't apologise. He doesn't care for the mistakes he's using. Maybe there should be a league where everyone uses aimbot, and who's the best out of those? It's another element that contributes to that game.
Is there a potential case for fraud here, where he's claiming to be this superb gamer? He's gaining subscribers on YouTube, 2 million of them, and as a result, serious money. And actually, he's very good, but he's not as good as he claims to be because he's cheating. Can his viewers now think, hang on, you've been fibbing here, you've wasted my time?
Yeah, but hang about, if we get into all of that, we all could be in danger. I'm just copied and pasted all my notes and I just read them off and then we'll all be done for fraud here. No, look, he's a young kid and he's just made a mistake. It can be worrying, but that's why I asked Ciaran Mcguire it's an interesting point. Although he is young, he's made a lot of money. Let's not forget, it's 2 million and through the adverts on YouTube, the money, because his subscribers come to watch him be very good at a game that apparently he is not that good at. But he's going to lose from this in a much bigger way than the apology needs, because the subscribers will go away.
The irony is, he's already got 4.1 million viewers on the apology, which actually equates to quite a lot of money. Maybe you should keep apologising.
Yeah, is it too late now to say sorry?
Imagine if you just uploaded that. You know, when you get the celebrities doing the badly screenshotted bit of the Notes app, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have done what I did. Just post a little bit of meaty pop music. We've got a meaty couple of hours coming up for you on Posh Boys on Drive, so don't go anywhere.
Love sport.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the mortgage, and the cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice, soon as I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Call 0808 808 0000 now.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Coming up on Posh Boys on Drive, we're continuing our inquest into this Saracens story. Going to be joined on the line by Sam Roberts, rugby journalist and commentator for BT Sport, and just find out exactly what is going on here. Is it really as bad as is being alleged? We're also going to be talking to Bryce McMurray, who's a fitness and performance coach, to find out how the England rugby players, many of them, of course, Saracens employees, will be recovering from a gruelling World Cup campaign. And we're talking Liverpool. Their Carabao Cup tie at Aston Villa is going to be played the day before their first FIFA Club World Cup match in Qatar. I've heard about tough fixture lists, but this takes it to another level. How will they cope? First of all, it's the news.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 5, a nursery worker is being questioned as part of a police inquiry which has uncovered multiple allegations of child sex offences. Officers have examined 250 hours of CCTV footage from Jack and Jill Childcare in Torquay and Devon, which has now been closed down. Former Chancellor Philip Hammond has announced he won't be standing at the general election. He says he feels aggrieved at being stripped of the Conservative whip for rebelling against the government, but won't run as an independent candidate. Meanwhile, Boris Johnson has given his cabinet ministers an election pep talk.
Thank you all very much for everything that you've done over the last 100 days. Do you feel up for the campaign? And
Yeah.
I think you do. You look as though you're full of beans.
The Lib Dems have launched their election campaign promising to boost the economy by cancelling Brexit. Jeremy Corbyn says Labour's determined to bring a divided country together. Workers on South Western Railway are to strike on most of the days in December in a long-running row about guards on trains. RMT members are threatening to walk out on 27 days, starting on the 2nd. The spending watchdog has criticised a scheme which was supposed to provide tens of thousands of new properties for first-time buyers in England. Not a single one's been built under the government's so-called Starter Homes project. £2.3 billion was initially set aside for 60,000 properties, part of a wider Conservative pledge to construct 200,000 in total. Labour's Shadow Housing Secretary John Healey isn't surprised.
They've built none, and I think it tells us that you can't trust the pledges of Tory ministers, and it tells us that you really can't trust them to fix the housing crisis. That'll be down to a future Labour government.
Thick white foam, which has mysteriously appeared on a river in Greater Manchester, is being investigated. It's been described on social media as like loads of soap suds as it flows through Salford's River Irwell. And the world's oldest working post office has been put up for sale. Sanker Post Office in Dumfries and Galloway opened in 1712. The current owners are retiring. That's the latest. I'm Andy Hayes.
Love Sport Radio, on digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Good afternoon. It's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive with me, Johnny Burrow and Charlie Hawkins. Your top stories this evening. Saracens have been deducted 35 points and fined £5.3 million by Premiership Rugby. That's after being found guilty of breaching salary cap rules. The Premiership and European champions will appeal the punishment, saying it is heavy-handed. Hellas Verona have banned the leader of their ultras from attending games for 11 years for racially abusing Brescia forward Mario Balotelli. Luca Castellini had previously said that Balotelli could never be completely Italian because he is black. Sonny Bill Williams is set to join Super League newcomers Toronto Wolfpack on a 2-year deal. The New Zealand crosscode star will sign a reported £9 million contract, making him the richest player in rugby league and rugby union history. And Liverpool's Carabao Cup tie at Aston Villa is to be played on December 17th, just the day before their first FIFA club match in Qatar. The club has said they will have to announce 2 different first-team squads simultaneously in order to compete in both competitions. That really is extraordinary. I've never heard anything like that, and we'll be getting into it later in the show. For now, I want to talk about this situation with Saracens, where they've been found guilty of breaking the salary cap limit. Now, Premiership rules state you can spend £7 million a year, excluding a couple of stars, on player salaries. However, various Saracen star men, including Farrell, the Vunipola brothers, Maro Itoje, were all involved in investing in companies with the owner of the club, and it's being alleged that that was being used as a kind of way to circumnavigate this salary cap. They, of course, deny it, saying, listen, these are investments. We can gain money, but we can lose money as well. It wasn't an inducement in signing for the club. And it's just part of life. We get to do this. It's going to run and run. And we're joined on the line by Sam Roberts, who's a rugby journalist and commentator for BT Sport. Evening, Sam. Is this punishment excessive or is it fair?
I'm trying to come to terms with it at the moment with exactly that sort of question. It depends how you look at it, really. It depends how you view it. Many people will say that it isn't enough. That Saracens, a club who are in a huge amount of debt have attempted to circumvent the rules that every other club in the Premiership plays by, and they have won Premiership titles off the back of doing that. And so people might make a case of saying that perhaps, this is spending money that you shouldn't have spent and spending it incorrectly. Richmond, London Welsh, both went into administration. They were demoted 9 leagues for not looking after their money properly. Saracens have not looked after their money properly. So you can make a case for it. The other side of the flip is that exactly how have they done it? How have Saracens? They were very clear in the statement that they made to congratulate or to highlight the Premiership's findings that this had not been done on purpose. This was some sort of accident that perhaps Saracens had fallen foul of, and obviously they look to appeal and they will look to clear their name on that case. I could examine that a little bit further and ask a few questions as to how that sort of thing happens. But I mean, there's a case to be made for both. This is an independent sporting resolutions are a very well-known dispute resolutions organisation who have spent 9 months working on this. I don't think that sort of organisation gets a lot wrong. So perhaps everything is as it should be, and Saracens are duly punished.
Sam, we've been talking about comparing it with other sports and other teams. We know Wasps and Harlequins, they had fines, much smaller fines. But for you, and you mentioned the titles there, and this is a big point of it, just simply on your personal opinion, does it invalidate a lot of their recent titles? They've been Premiership champions 4 of the last 5 seasons, European champs the last 2 years. We know Juventus, they lost titles, they were relegated. For you, is this of the same ilk?
It throws a lot of darkness around that, and that's where it starts to get very icky and very dirty and very horrible. Is that just how have they done it? Just how have they circumvented it? And going back to that statement, if they're suggesting that they haven't knowingly done it, is that more to the case of the fact that did they do something which they thought wasn't involved in the salary cap? Had they come up with a way of rewarding players financially that was different, that they thought lay outside the salary cap? If that's what they thought, if they thought they weren't going to get picked up for it, then yes, you can see that perhaps they can make a case for being out. But was the advice wrong? And it goes back to exactly how they do it. I mean, I've got a theory on how it works. It's guesswork to a certain extent, but it's quite clever. It's quite clever how Saracens have got away with it. If they have done the property investment side of things, if they have done that with players and given players money in which to invest in property, and then that property money has gone up, yes, they have only paid their players a certain amount of money, but they've enabled them to make more money off it. And I think that's how they've been clever, or, as the Premiership Rugby would say, perhaps they've been a little bit wrong.
How high are the stakes here for Saracens? Are we talking relegation? Are we talking losing all their star men? Just how costly could this prove?
I was having a chat with another well-known rugby name who was suggesting that actually this isn't going to be too much of a problem for Saracens. They will, even if they hit the 30, if they get the points reduction reduced, they could end up not as far down the ladder. Even if they were 35, they've still got the quality to survive in the Premiership. Yes, they won't win it. Yes, it will be bad for them. But the next year, they'll be back to the level playing field that they were on and all of that. And European champ, they could still qualify for next year's European Champions Cup by winning this year's European Champions Cup. So they could
they'd still be allowed to compete, were they? Even if they got relegated?
Well, I think so. Again, you'd have to. If that relegation, I don't think that they will. I don't think. Mind you, the Premiership is looking very competitive at the moment. I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, the more you talk about it, the more you start to think, yeah, this is exceptionally seismic for Saracens, and how they will deal with it, how they will work it through. Player welfare is massive for them. Are they going to ask a few players to just play in an
to make sure that the relegation doesn't happen? Are they going to stick to their sort of self-imposed player welfare? You suggest that. Are they going to also move players? I don't know. They will probably find a way around it, and maybe, I hope not. Part of me wants Saracens to sort of stick their hands up and say, mea culpa, we will work around this. The appeal, or trying to, sort of go around with it a little bit more, worries me a little bit, and I just don't believe that we want this to wrangle on and on and on, and still be a bitter pill for all of the other clubs who are theoretically abiding by the self-imposed rules by the Premiership. Let's face it, it is not enforceable by law. If they go to court, the Saracens will say, you can't enforce this. This is a restriction of trade. You can't tell people what to spend. So it's a self-imposed thing by the Premiership, and that's where it also gets really tricky. Is the Premiership is kind of governing itself, and Saracens are going to fall out of favour of the Premiership. Oh my goodness! See, the more I talk about it, the crazier it sounds, and the more irate I get.
No, it is a very, very complex one. Sam, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. Sam Roberts there, rugby journalist and commentator for BT Sport. One thing I've been noticing on Twitter, Charlie, is the extent to which other people in the rugby world seem to be really revelling in this. There is a lot of schadenfreude going on. The response basically seems to be good. They've caught them. There isn't a lot of sympathy. There isn't a lot of consideration that they actually might not have broken any rules. Have you been surprised by that?
No, in today's day and age, society, social media, because when this news broke earlier, me and you were preparing to do the show today, and we were researching and studying up. I went on social media. It's what we do now when any story breaks, and I was reading all of the comments, literally from fans, all of the other opposing teams. Happy this has happened. They've ruined the league. They've tarnished their image. They've tarnished the image of the league. Cheating should be banned at all costs. A loophole means they have done wrong. We don't need to hear how wrong they've done. They have done wrong. They found a gap and they exploited it. Is this bitterness from the fans, or have they got a point? And always, we need to know a little bit more of the details, Johnny, before we can make claim. But we're quick to assumptions, and they're not always right.
They aren't. But you just wonder whether this could be a huge moment. I mean, there were 8 Saracens players on the field in that World Cup final. 8. They've won 4 of the last 5 Premiership titles. They're Premiership and European champions. This is the equivalent of Barcelona getting the biggest book in the library thrown directly at their heads for misbehaviour. It's absolutely extraordinary.
It does, but does that for you? We asked Sam, does that invalidate their recent titles? Does it do that for you? I'm not so sure.
Well, I mean,
they still need to go on and win these trophies.
It's true, but there is going to be a complex investigation done. It's going to take a while. But if it is found that they were illegally, not in the legal sense, but in the rules of the sport, unfairly, shall we say, overpaying their players, they were cheating, weren't they? It enables you to get a higher quality squad, and if that is the case, surely you would have to go back and perhaps re-examine the way certain matches, certain titles went.
Well, why aren't we having this conversation about Man City? They are back-to-back Premier League champions. They are in a financial fair play battle themselves. They could face a transfer ban. They were worried that they were going to be docked points. Is this the same kind of thing? Did it change how they went and won their titles? This is tricky, very muddy waters.
And I mean, you could go back to Chelsea, couldn't you? Transfer ban for signing players under the age of 18 in a way that was improper. Well, I mean, how long ago were they doing that? Should we go and have a look at their Champions League? You know, we can start going really, really far into this. It's going to run and run, and those poor Saracens players who are involved have been running and running and running. They did a whole season, then they played a World Cup. They must be knackered. And coming up next, we're going to be asking a fitness and performance coach about how they can recover.
This is Love Sport.
Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
Love Sport.
Well, if you just run around for a month or so, getting clattered into by some of the biggest men you've ever seen, you would be knackered and well in need of an ice bath. We're joined on the line by Bryce McMurray, our resident fitness and performance coach and expert. Bryce, thanks for joining us. Great to talk to you. How will those players involved in the final in particular be feeling, and how can they recover?
To be honest, they'll be physically, I'd say mentally and emotionally drained. In many ways, the whole tournament is still so raw. I'd be surprised if what they've just been through has actually sunk in. You know, adrenaline would have been flowing for so many weeks now. And so it'll be some time before they actually come back down to earth and process the whole tournament. And that's why managing this transitional period from international duty back into the clubs is absolutely paramount.
Bryce, obviously with that defeat in the World Cup final, is this something clubs have to manage further? Because now after that adrenaline wears off, as you say, they're going to have to manage maybe their moods, their positive outlook, because, you know, they could be down for a while. Is this something that the club have to look into as well? Because it could affect that side of things.
Yeah, definitely. You know, the mental side of things is absolutely crucial, because burnout is technically a psychological term. You know, rugby players are in a continual state of stress, and this takes a psychological toll because, you know, it develops gradual stress over time being in that pressure cooker. Now, this stress might not even be obvious to him, but, you know, it's kind of lurking underneath. And eventually, if it's not carefully managed, you know, it leaves a player feeling overwhelmed and unable to meet the demands of both club and international duty. And this is where the sports psychologists play a huge role. You know, Bath Rugby, for example, they recruited a new sports psychologist this season. You know, they're looking to sharpen the minds and kind of breed that high-performance culture environment. And in addition to this, you know, dealing with things like building up self-confidence and learning to be self-reliant, that can really help insulate the players from experiencing burnout. You know, club psychologists will be teaching their players about effective coping strategies that include at least one kind of problem-focused or emotional-focused strategy. And so when they're then faced with uncontrollable or controllable stressors, you know, they'll always have an effective coping strategy to deploy. And that's really the mental side is absolutely crucial.
How good are clubs at managing this kind of thing? Because if your player's been away at the World Cup, that's great. They've been playing high-level rugby. But there would be a temptation to view them as your asset. You'd want to get them back on the field for you as quickly as possible. Are they responsible with the players' fitness normally?
I think a lot's come on in recent years, but you know, tensions between Premiership rugby clubs and the RFU rose last season over the number of training ground injuries that their players got exposed to when they went to England camp. So it became clear that, you know, the English players need to be better managed. And there's a big difference between the English, the Welsh and the Irish. You know, the IRFU and the RFU, they all benefit from the players being centrally contracted. So they're liaising with the regions to ensure that players are ready for international duty, even if that means dropping a few of their club games. Whereas the problem for the kind of English and French players is that they have competitive forces all driving this financial agenda, which has the kind of player wedged in the middle. But what I would say is that, things have really accelerated over the last few years. World Rugby's medical focus has been on establishing, a solid awareness and management and prevention of the kind of injuries. And with that in mind, they kind of introduced a new procedure before the World Cup. So players were all given what was called a loading passport. And this was to monitor their training and playing workload in an attempt to reduce the risk of chronic burnout. There was a study done by World Rugby and its Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Martin Rafferty, and he kind of talked about the fact that, a lot of players were being asked to perform after big tournaments when they weren't 100% fit. And this ongoing pressure that comes from team coaches and staff, especially for England players, can be detrimental down the line when kind of players break down. So I think things have moved on, but there's still work to be done with the English teams. And just another point on that, I know Saracens have been in the news for different reasons, but they were one of the first clubs to come out and say categorically that all of their Rugby World Cup players who are returning from Japan will play a maximum of 7 games in this regular season. And that includes all European Cup games and finals. So kind of put that into context.
They're getting good money for that, Bryce.
Yeah, it's kind of what they have to work with the RFU and kind of have that balancing act. And I suppose there's so many questions coming to my head because obviously, I was kind of writing a few notes earlier thinking, squad depth is crucial. But again, because Saracens have said what they've said, that then springs to mind. But, this is where player rotation is absolutely paramount because they've got such an extensive squad. You've got to make sure that player health and well-being is finally being prioritised. And that's why, there's 22 rounds of the Premiership season. They're only going to play 7 of them. So this gives the players an opportunity to kind of have a few weeks off, rest and recover and really optimise that so they're actually fresh and fit and then not then encroaching towards that kind of burnout.
Bryce, you mentioned about psychological burnout and that after the adrenaline wears off, players will have to deal with this for a number of days in coming weeks. How strange is it then that the season is ongoing, so they come straight back from a World Cup, there are games this weekend, they don't have that downtime, a few weeks to go on holiday with their family and recharge their batteries for next week, because we don't see this in other sports. And it leads me on to the 2020 Qatar World Cup, because in football we will have the same problem where the World Cup will be played in December, January, then they will carry on with their season. They won't have no time to find that recharge and recovery mode.
Yeah, and the psychological component here is huge because they're going to be hurting. Because for some of them, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get to a final and, their chance is gone. And so that's going to be weighing on them quite heavily. And for a lot of players, they landed from Japan yesterday. They'll be back into the club environment today. So although they won't be back thrown into full training, they'll go through their medical checks. But the thing is, obviously, because they aren't centrally contracted, all of the teams are going to have different strategies with regard to how they manage their players. So some players may go back into training this week and they may be given a week off here and there, but it's very difficult to manage because, from my point of view, I'd be looking, okay, right, they should now be having a holiday because technically their season's finished. That should be their off switch. Off they go, have their time with family and friends who obviously they've sacrificed and missed time away from home for the best part of 5 months. Those England players have been in camp since June. And being in Eddie Jones's training environment for that length of time is colossal in itself. And so the psychological toll is huge. The psychologists in communication with the strength and conditioning and the medical coaches have to be liaising quite extensively with the players on a day-to-day basis and to monitor them, making sure they're positive. And obviously, if anything's taken negative dip, then they can obviously pull them out and use that week as a kind of active recovery week.
Bryce, always a real pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for your time. Bryce McMurray there, who is an expert fitness and performance coach, telling us how we can recover from elite level sport, which, Charlie, is obviously massively helpful for you and me.
Yeah, massively. After this show, I've got the massage planned in, I've got the notes, I've got the rain on the YouTube.
Ice bath.
Just comes out, ice bath. You need to really recover from this. This is 4 hours, really grueling schedule and, ready to go again tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I tend to unwind with a quick night out with Nicholas Bentner. I find that gets the muscles nice and loose.
3 times a week?
3 times a week. Not if I'm on the radio, Charlie. Certainly not if it's early. I've got a slightly unorthodox story I want to talk to you about, and it involves Emma Watson, a.k.a. Hermione Granger. She is...
Wingardium Leviosa.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. She's approaching her 30th birthday, and I'm sure to the delight of various single men in the country, she is herself single. But she has said she prefers to refer to herself as self-partnered rather than single. Now, Emma Watson is fantastically rich, fantastically intelligent, and fantastically beautiful. That said, this is the saddest thing I think I've ever heard. Surely it's so much worse than just accepting that you're single.
Self-partnered,
Self-partnered. I really love myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're going to take from it. It's probably the new fad, isn't it? The 2019, 2020, you don't have to say you're single on your own, you're self-partnered, you're with self.
Do you reckon if she does the classic single person move and she gets in on a Saturday night and she pulls her Sainsbury's ready meal chicken tikka masala out the freezer, pierces the film in 3 places, sticks it in the microwave, takes it out, she thinks, hang on, I'm not single, I'm self-partnered. She divides it into 2, puts 2 small portions on 2 plates, then eats both of them.
Yeah.
Because there's not just one of her, she's self-partnered.
She should have stayed with Ron.
With Ron. Well, you never know. We've just been informed that our producer Laurie Callis used to have a poster of Hermione Granger in his room, which is shocking. He's actually now modelled his haircut on hers from the Chamber of Secrets.
Leave off. He had a poster of Hagrid next to it.
I want to talk about Chelsea Football Club. We've mentioned them in tonight's show.
Segue.
Good deal. Yeah, I'm not even going to try and link that one. They're in action in the Champions League tonight, and they're of course having a great deal of success with the kids. And as a result, we're seeing other teams follow suit, right? Arsenal have been doing it. Reece Nelson's been featuring a bit. Bukayo Saka is featuring
Are you being serious?
a great deal. Joe Willock is involved. Gabriel Martinelli.
I can't
What's
take
up?
that comment
What's
serious.
up, mate?
Are you just saying that Chelsea are playing their youth and Arsenal followed suit? Arsenal have done this for years. Chelsea aren't doing it because they have chosen to do it. They have to do it.
Mum,
this is
get the
Chelsea.
fishing rod. I've got one.
No. You was not fishing here. You genuinely believe the comment that you just made. Chelsea are in a position where they have to play the youngsters. They have no other choice. I don't want to hear, aren't they doing wonders for the game, playing those kids, giving that youth a chance? Do you believe Chelsea would be doing this if they had a transfer ban? Arsenal have been playing their kids in the league and in cups for years. This is what Arsenal are known for. This is why we were able to attract that talent. You did not fish me there, my friend. I was there, hook, line and sinker, ready to pop out and raise like a salmon.
Producer Laurie, could we give Bryce McMurray a quick ring back and just find out how Charlie Hawkins can recover both physically and emotionally from that little rant there? What I was going to say is Tottenham are now calling for that same approach. Tottenham fans saying, well, hang on, it's working for Chelsea. Our senior boys aren't interested. On that front, by the way, Heung-min Son has had his red card overturned for that challenge on a certain Mr. Gomez, who we hear is recovering well from his horror injury. The fans are saying they want the kids involved instead. Listen, if Harry Kane's not doing it, play young Troy Parrott. We're seeing a shift towards the youth in the Premier League, and long may it continue. Talking youth, up next, we're talking Fortnite.
This is Love Sport. Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Kenna, men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee. and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
This is Love Sport.
One of our top stories this evening involves FaZe Jarvis, a gaming YouTuber who's been banned for life from playing Fortnite for cheating using an aimbot. We discussed his story earlier with Andy Robertson, who's a gaming journalist for The Guardian, BBC and Mirror Tech, and I began by asking Andy whether the ban was harsh.
Well, I think when you see the video, it's this teenager who's just hugely upset with what's happened, and I think there's genuine emotion there. But at the same time, he has been making a lot of money from both esports and from YouTube. So I think the level of expectation of his behaviour should be higher if we want to treat esports players like athletes. I think that it is right to have a higher expectation. But I would have hoped that there would have been an adult in the room in his gaming and his video making that would have been advising him about terms of service, and obviously it wasn't.
Andy, obviously this hour we're talking about the big Saracens news, and they've had a huge fines. Can we see possibly maybe a case where he would have to potentially give some of his earnings back if he's misled some of the public? Could that be a case?
I mean, that's kind of probably outside my expertise, but I think what some of the pain he's feeling is that this is his daily routine, both in terms of making video, but also in terms of making a nice substantial income on YouTube. So I think that he's seeing all that kind of fall away. I think what's going to be interesting is to see how the game creator reacts to this. I mean, watching the video, it feels like it will be hard for them to keep that lifetime ban there forever.
Why though,
but,
Andy?
I know that people would say that they
Why
should.
is that hard? Just because he's upset? Because if I see a Lance Armstrong cry and go, "I'm so sorry, I don't get to ride a bike anymore," yeah, okay, tough. You cheated. Why is it different for this guy?
I think it's a new thing. It's a new sport that we're working out, and I think looking at I haven't looked into great detail, but he's saying that the cheating that he did was on videos he created for entertainment. It wasn't that he entered an esports competition and was secretly using an aimbot to win a big prize. It was something that on the surface of it looks like a credible mistake, and he's holding his hands up to it. So just, it's a family game and they want parents on side. So I think Epic need to be sort of seen to be putting the right foot forward. But at the same time, I don't know what the right answer is, because if they do that, they'll be criticised for saying, well, you're encouraging people to cheat. So it is a tricky one.
It is a very tough one. Just for people listening at home, would you mind quickly clarifying what an aimbot is or what they can be?
Yeah, so this is a bit of software that you would install on your computer playing the game that then assists you so that you can then target the enemy players much easier, and it gives you a massive advantage. And it's something, when my kids get shot in the game,
They shout, "He's got
"Oh,
an aimbot!" I shout that every time, Andy. If someone is quicker on the draw than me, he's got an aimbot. It's the only explanation.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, they can't all be cheating, but and that's what they're trying to get away from. Is this they need a level playing field, because if you get beaten in Fortnite, you need to be like, "Oh, that was a good player," rather than, "Oh, is that guy hacking?" which is what kids will often say.
Very, very tough. You mentioned esports there, right? And there is this big drive towards taking gaming really seriously as a competitive enterprise, as a sport. And I know he was using the aimbot in non-competitive context. He was just playing normal online games. But is there an argument, if esports are sport, that this is basically doping?
I guess you could argue that this is practicing to with an aimbot, because he's not actually doping in a competition, if you're going to use that phrase. And I think we just need to tread a bit carefully, because this is kind of new territory, and it's easy to jump to assumptions about people's behaviour that when they're the first sort of person making this sort of mistake, I think there needs to be some leeway. But what probably needs to happen is that we need a more public airing of what is and isn't acceptable. And I think this overlaps with behaviour on YouTube. He has got a large following on YouTube, and he's been driven by that following to create entertaining content. And he thought, I know, it will be entertaining for me to use Namebot. I'm a pro esports Fortnite player. Wouldn't it be funny if I used Namebot? What will that be like? And he's thought about the entertaining side of it, but he hasn't thought about other consequences. And that, I think, is what you're seeing in his emotional response, that there's a genuine shock. That it was like, oh my gosh, what's happened? I didn't mean to do it, but I did do it.
There are other miners who have actually found themselves in rather more hot water over aimbots, because Epic Games, who publish Fortnite, are notoriously tough on cheating. They took a miner to court for posting YouTube videos of cheats of this kind and selling cheating software. So this is an area where you can actually get yourself in quite serious trouble.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, again, the legal side of, what is right and isn't right is the grey area. Now, I'm a supposed expert in video games, but I don't know the ins and outs of that. And
well,
so,
nobody does, do they, Andy? I mean, it's just ground we haven't had the opportunity to tread yet.
Yeah, so these kind of, these rulings are being made as we speak. So again, I think that comes back to why we need a little bit more kind of generosity and leniency to people who are making mistakes, particularly if they're younger. But like we said, it's not a simple scenario.
Well, I know you're not just someone who's interested in gaming. You're someone who's interested in gaming for families and for kids. You run Family Gamer TV. With that in mind, this is a 17-year-old boy. We've heard him cry in his apology video. What do you think the response should be?
The response from the community, or the response from his parents, or from who?
The response from the community and from Epic Games, frankly. Should they kind of reel their punishment back?
I mean, I think Epic have got a difficult scenario. Looking at the video, my feeling is that they need to show some leniency here. And that's just my personal opinion. Just looking at the emotion on display, the reaction of the community in the comments, and the rhetoric on YouTube around his followers who'd like to see a bit of leniency. But what I think is important to take away from this is that parents have a role to play in guiding the behaviour of children online. And his mum's been making quotes on Facebook and talking about it. And so obviously he is involved to some extent. But I think we all have a bit of responsibility to both understand what our kids are doing, be able to cheer them on when they're doing well, but also to be that adult in the room saying, do you know the ins and outs of this? And particularly if they start making a lot of money in these spaces, to think about it as an adult guiding presence there. Do you need to actually have some other assistance to work out what is and isn't legal? What are your protections here? And some of those questions that wouldn't come to mind to a young teenager who's stumbled into esports and YouTube and didn't really intend to potentially, but is starting to make quite a bit of money.
Great to talk to gaming journalist Andy Robertson earlier. And a hot topic in football isn't just cheating, but fixture congestion, with the top clubs playing close to, sometimes over 50 games a year. If you're playing League Cup, FA Cup, Premier League, Champions League, the games come thick and fast. You're playing Saturday, you're playing Wednesday, you're playing Sunday, you're playing Tuesday. Very, very busy. But I have still never seen anything like this. We've got used to fixture congestion, but what Liverpool are having to deal with now is on another level. It's been announced that their Carabao Cup tie at Aston Villa is to be played on December 17th. Now, there doesn't seem to be anything exceptional about that until you find out that that is literally the day before their first FIFA Club World Cup match in Qatar. And the Club World Cup is 2 legs in a, I think, quarter-final, 2 legs in a semi-final, and a final if you go all the way, which you would expect the Champions League winners to do. It's absolutely extraordinary. The club are saying that they're going to have to announce 2 different first-team squads. They're going to have to announce them simultaneously, with one group playing in the League Cup and one flying out to Qatar. How can this be?
They didn't have to play in the Club World Cup, though, did they?
I think they do, don't they?
I don't think you have to oblige. It's not compulsory. I think my argument isn't that they shouldn't, because obviously if you've won the Champions League, you are the European champions. What a fantastic honour and privilege it is to play in this tournament. And maybe it's because I'm a little bit bitter and stubborn that I remember the time Man United won the Champions League in 1999, and in the next season, because of their fixture pile-up, they pulled out of the FA Cup, which really, for me, was the beginning of the end for the FA Cup. How can we argue whether it's still got its magic when Man United just pulled out of the trophy and didn't compete that year, and they were allowed to waltz straight back in because they did not want this pile-up, and they went out and they didn't even win the Club World Cup.
Yeah, very, very frustrating. But, I mean, Jurgen Klopp has got quite a strong squad. If Mane gets injured, Shaqiri comes in. If Firmino gets injured, Origi comes in. But does he really have enough for two genuinely strong 15s? He's probably got just about enough for two strong 11s. But producing two separate squads is a serious, serious challenge.
It is a serious challenge, but it's one that Liverpool, if they want to compete on all fronts, they're going to have to deal with, because, you know, managers will argue that the fixtures are congested even when you're not in the Club World Cup. 2 to 3 games, you're in the League Cup, the FA Cup, the Champions League, the Premier League, and on top of that, the Club World Cup. We're seeing sides, whoever are in, Arsenal, Wolves, Aston Villa, they was all in the League Cup. They're rotating their sides anyway, regardless of a Club World Cup. They've chosen to participate, so they're going to have to deal with it. We know when is the fixture most congested, when is it the busiest. It is the Christmas period. I don't know why the Club World Cup is played in these months, or it may be a case of it's the only time they can play it.
I suppose there is a potential silver lining here, though, in that Chelsea have found a sequence of breakthrough stars this season because they've been forced, as a result of that transfer ban, to play the kids. It's not a transfer ban, but Liverpool have a similar situation here where, needing two squads, they're going to need to play some of those kids. They're going to need to play the likes of Ryan Brewster, the likes of Harvey Elliott. And we could actually see, because the Club World Cup and the League Cup, with respect, are both relatively insignificant competitions, we could see a real breakthrough for some of those youngsters.
Well, this is the argument. So who do they leave the stronger squad with? Is it the League Cup? They keep them at home, they keep them fresh for the league, they take out that younger proposed side, as you're saying, give the youth a chance, take them to the Club World Cup. That is the question. Where do they take the stronger side, or do they completely strip it 50 down in the middle?
I think they'll balance it, won't they? I think they'll go the halfway line, where you'll get Ryan Brewster in one, Harvey Elliott in the other, Mane in one, Salah in the other.
Well, then that's completely not the Liverpool we're used to knowing and they don't play with. And the argument is, wherever they do it, and if they do 50 middle because they want to maybe give the best chance to winning those cups and going through, but if they do take, say, precedence and priority with the League Cup and the League, and they do send out the kids to the Club World Cup because they knew when this was going to take place, why have they participated? Why are they entering if they are going to send the kids? It wouldn't make sense from that angle.
Yeah, very, very complicated one for them. I'd have thought they have grounds for a complaint, don't they? I mean, if you are operating in the lower leagues where you don't get an international break and you're a good enough side that lots of your players are on international duty, you can apply to the FA or the relevant board and say, listen, can we just move this fixture? We're still going to play it, but let's shift it a few days so that we can have our strongest team. Surely Liverpool should be able to go to Aston Villa, go to the FA and say, listen, lads, this is a farce. We cannot play 2 games in 2 days. Let's just shift it 4 days in another direction. And that would have a really, really big bearing on it, surely.
It would, but this is so difficult. And the Club World Cup, you say it's insignificant. I want to go back to that point, Johnny. Is it insignificant? How insignificant is it?
It's relatively insignificant. I mean, the way the Club World Cup works is you get the...
No, I'm familiar, but I mean, you're saying it's insignificant.
But not everyone listening will be familiar.
Yeah.
And we've got the winner of the Champions League, the winner of the Copa America, the winner of the Northern American version, the Australasian version, and so on. What that means is, if you're the Champions League winner and you choose to play a strong squad, really, you should be winning it. Manchester United did a good line in winning it when they'd won the Champions League. We have seen clubs come unstuck against Chinese teams, against Brazilian opposition, but basically it's tin pot. No one's fans in England certainly go, oh, we won the Club World Cup. Yeah, it's a huge piece of silverware. It's a bit like the Community Shield. So why would you bother?
Well, yeah, but then this just waters down the trophy, the competition entirely. If that's how it's seen, then it should be played a la like the Super Cup, the European Super Cup, 1 week before or 2 weeks before. They start their pre-season a little bit earlier. Everyone can play. They're not competing with any other league, so the TV revenue is up, and everyone's watching it. And then we see who's the best side before the start of the season. Now, I know weather permitting, because this is the coolest time in Qatar. That's why the World Cup's being played in the winter months. But it's a strange one, and I'm not so sure.
No, it's a very, very tough one indeed. Liverpool are going to have a problem doing it, and you'd have to say, is it advantage Man City? If Man City beat them on Sunday and Liverpool are having to juggle 2 squads around Christmas, could we see Pep's boys wriggle back into that title race? Coming up, we're going to be hearing from the legendary Sir Viv Richards.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Love Sport.
We're joined on the line now by the wonderful Sir Viv Richards, legendary West Indian batsman. Sir Viv, thanks for your time. Lovely to have you. You are, of course, talking to us about the world travel market and, of course, Antigua. What was your experience growing up there like?
Experience growing up in Antigua is we as free as a bird, and it's amazing the things that we did as kids. When you look back at yourself now as an adult, you're wondering how you did accomplish that sort of stuff. But growing up in Ireland, where you almost knew everyone and the neighbors, and it was just a special place, and we're just trying to share what is so special to us growing up as a kid to folks who come as tourists and folks who want to be part of the Antiguan dream, as I call it, for 3 weeks, whether it's a month. But we live on a very special piece of real estate.
Sounds absolutely extraordinary. And I know you're keen to talk about the world travel market as well, with some huge deals predicted there. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, to be fair, this is where we come and start our stuff. We come, and especially on shows like this, we try and highlight the product which we have. There's also a stand that you can come and just have a look around, and that, I think, would give you some sort of indication to the vacation that I think you may look to require. It is just special. We try our best each year to make sure that Antigua is highlighted enough, because why? It is our number one seller in terms of with the economics and all that. So having that, we got to make sure we are at our very best. So if you come on the stand, you will see the things that can be enjoyed, and you take it from there.
Well, it sounds like I'll definitely have to visit. I want to ask you about a certain Mr. Jofra Archer, because Sir Garfield Sobers has claimed that the West Indies have lost a good one. They say the West Indies should have done more to keep Jofra playing for them. Do you agree with that?
Well, I certainly agree with that, but one's got to remember as well that Jeffrey Archer is from Barbados, and there's a whole lot of cricketing buffs out of Barbados. Let's not forget that. So I think he was there in Barbados before West Indies really had a hand on him.
So, for you, is there a frustration of him playing for England?
I would feel that because it was the one that got away, and that's a huge fish in my opinion. Especially the contribution that he would have made to England winning their first ever World Cup in cricket. Wow. It's I think the jury must be still out in the Caribbean to why and how this individual got away.
Yeah, frustrating for you. For overall, an extraordinary summer of cricket. And I have to say, when I saw Ben Stokes at Headingley proving the entirety of Australia wrong, I did actually think of you. Do you think you could have produced an innings like that?
No, it's always nice to see. There are times when you're called upon, and this is what makes you. There's sometimes in sports, right, there's the horses that also ran. And I will say for sure, when I say also ran, they're not at the forefront. But when you see knocks like what Ben Stokes would have done at that particular time in the circumstances also, he didn't also run. He was running for quite a long time. So that's a good horse.
Seriously impressive. And a quick word on Chris Gayle. He is, of course, getting on a bit now, but still batting very, very impressively. How long do you think he can carry on for?
It's not for me to say how long he can carry on for. It's up to Chris Gayle to believe how long he can carry on for. If he's still productive, yes. If it's not, if and buts and things like that, we should look to maybe move forward. But so long as he's contributing, in my opinion, because at this present time as well, too, you look at maybe sometimes the makeup of the West Indies teams, individuals, new guys are introduced and never quite comes to the party. But if Chris is prolonging his retirement and he is producing, I'm all for that. And yet he can still be of some influence in the field. I'm all for that. But if that's not the case, well, he should have a long look.
Interesting to hear Sir Viv Richards' comments there about Jofra Archer. Obviously a contentious one where a player has got dual nationality and can play for the nation of his birth or can play for a kind of adoptive nation. It gets very personal, and it of course ultimately comes down to the choice of that player. But Charlie, can you appreciate that West Indian frustration at seeing Jofra Archer be so brilliant and doing it in England whites?
Yeah, of course. I completely understand and appreciate where they're coming from. They wanted him to play for them. He's a world-class player. He's a world-class talent. He's a generational talent, as Sir Viv Richards said there. He could have led them to big future glory, and now it's not the case to be. People could have tried harder. It's a really tough, tricky line, this one, and obviously Jofra made the decision he did, and Jofra is an absolute icon and legend already. I was speaking to you earlier, Johnny, and I was at the NFL on the weekend, and Jofra was in attendance, and they announced him and they interviewed him pitch side, and the stadium roof came off. The noise and appreciation, the love for Jofra Archer was outstanding. I mean, this is a man who's really he's become a national treasure already, and this is probably what Sir Viv Richards alludes to, because shortly after, Thomas Bjorn, now obviously not in the same bracket, but he is the current Ryder Cup winning captain, winning the last Ryder Cup. No one in the stadium knew who he was, and it was like that they went from interviewing a cricket superstar, a sporting superstar, and then interviewing some average Joe. I mean, the difference in reception was astounding.
We've seen footballing examples where players have had the option of playing for one or the other. Wilf Zaha famously represented England in a few friendlies. He now plays his football for the Ivory Coast. Tammy Abraham was flirting with the Nigerian Super Eagles for quite some time before he committed his future to England. Fikayo Tomori still could go for Nigeria over England. He could go for Canada as well, although that would be quite a bizarre choice. We saw Diego Costa, who played for Brazil, the nation of his birth, a few times, and then, of course, became a prolific Spanish international. So it gets very lively. And then we had a bizarre scenario in the Rugby World Cup semi-final where we had Willie Hines, a New Zealander, born in New Zealand, raised in New Zealand, playing rugby, dreaming of playing for the All Blacks, knocking the All Blacks out of a World Cup while wearing an England shirt.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy when you sat like that and how it happens. And even more recently, I remember there was a massive one for the first time in years. Golf was allowed back in the Olympics, and Rory McIlroy had the chance to play and represent Great Britain, Republic of Ireland, and Northern Ireland. And everyone it was on the charm offensive, Johnny. Everyone was trying him to persuade who should he represent, and he felt like he owed all three of them. He felt like he could make a case for all, and he'd always dreamed about playing in the Olympics, and in the end he pulled out and he didn't play for none because he did not know who to represent. So this man, because of fear of upsetting people and the abuse that he may get on social media, he didn't go to the Olympics after golf was finally reintroduced. And what a shame that was, that he could have potentially added an Olympic medal to what is already a terrific achievement.
Yeah, it would have been quite something. The most bizarre, if we could call it that, is arguably Ben Stokes, who was shortlisted for New Zealander of the Year for winning the Cricket World Cup for England, playing a crucial part in beating New Zealand in the final. It's absolute madness.
It is madness. And then obviously Declan Rice in the England side, and he'd already represented Ireland and stuff there, and he had the choice, and Gareth Southgate had to persuade him, and then there was obviously some nice tweets, and now he's at the heart and the centre of that England midfield and getting ready for the Euros next summer.
But it comes down in every case to the player's personal choice, doesn't it? I mean, if I were not terrible at sport, right, I am technically eligible for England, obviously, Wales and South Africa. And I consider myself English, and very much English, and only English. But if I were good enough at football to play for Wales or South Africa, but not good enough to play for England, and the Welsh manager said, how about it? I would go, yeah. Absolutely, I'd be honoured. And you would, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't, no.
Wouldn't you?
Well,
you really wouldn't?
Chance
to play international football?
Not if I was wording it like you just worded it. You went, I'm English, I consider myself English, but all of a sudden I'm not good enough for them, so I can't play for them. Well, if
I don't have
I'm
any problem
considering...
with that.
Well, I would find that a disrespect. I'm not saying you're a disrespectful person, but I'm saying that how can you say you only consider yourself English, but I'll get to play international games, so I'll go and play for Wales. So that's disrespectful to their fans, their people, because now just because you want to play international football, I'm going to rock up for them. But you, a minute ago, before that, were saying you're a proud Englishman, you only want to play for England.
Yeah, but it's pragmatism, right? I can be a proud Englishman and also play international football by completely selling out. That's my message. Lots to come on Posh Boys on Drive.
This is Love Sport.
Hi, my name's Kurt Edwards. I work in advertising and live in Surrey. Last year, the family content insurance was £745. A friend of mine had recommended a spokesmansaid.com. When it came for this year's renewal, I managed to get it for £403. So for those 10 minutes on that website, I saved over £340. Told my family, my friends, you'd be absolutely mad not to give it a go.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realize that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search 1U.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
Coming up on Posh Boys on Drive, we're continuing our inquest into this situation at Saracens, and we're going to be joined on the line by George Shooter, former Sarries and England hooker. I know he's got strong views on the subject, so interesting to get an inside line there. And we're going to be talking to a golf expert as Phil Mickelson drops out of the top 50 for the first time in 50 years. We're going to be talking about the YouTuber who's been banned from Fortnite for life for cheating, and previewing tonight's Champions League games. Spurs not in action because they're rubbish. Chelsea in action versus Ajax, and Liverpool versus Genk. But first, the news.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 6. Former Chancellor Philip Hammond joined the exodus from Parliament, confirming he won't be standing in next month's general election. The Lib Dems have launched their campaign, promising to cancel Brexit and give the economy a boost in the process. Leader Joe Swinson is warning against business as usual.
Millions of voters have that choice in their hands at this election. Don't let anyone tell you what has to happen. Change is possible.
Labour says it'll have Brexit sorted within 6 months if the party makes it to Downing Street. Police say a nursery worker is being investigated over multiple allegations of sexual assault on children as young as 2. Jack and Jill Childcare in Torquay in Devon, where the teenager worked before his arrest in July, has closed down. Commuters could face a whole month of rail disruption in the run-up to Christmas after workers announced 27 days of strike action in December. South Western Railway staff say walkouts will begin on the 2nd as part of a row about guards on trains. An alternative to smear tests could soon revolutionise the way doctors diagnose cervical cancer. Researchers have developed a way to identify pre-cancer lesions via a simple urine test that women can take at home. They hope it'll improve participation. Comedian Karen Hobbs was diagnosed with cervical cancer at the age of 24.
About a third of women aged 25 to 29, the kind of first age group that gets screened, don't attend their appointments. And that's my age group. And I can't imagine getting that letter and not attending.
In football, Liverpool have confirmed they'll play twice within 24 hours next month, 4,000 miles apart. They'll use separate squads to fulfil the League Cup quarter-final at Aston Villa and the Club World Cup in Qatar. And Hollywood actress Emma Watson described herself as self-partnered rather than single. The Harry Potter star has been speaking to British Vogue about the pressure of turning 30 next year. That's the latest. I'm Andy Hayes.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Good evening, it's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. That's me, Johnny Burrow, and special Posh Boy, honorary Posh Boy, Charlie Hawkins. We're with you till 7, and here are your top stories this evening. Saracens have been deducted 35 points and fined £5.3 million by Premiership Rugby. That's after they were found guilty of breaching salary cap rules. They are, of course, appealing that judgment. The Premiership and European champions are appealing on grounds that it is heavy-handed. Liverpool's Carabao Cup tie at Aston Villa is to be played on December 17th, the day before their first FIFA Club World Cup match in Qatar. The club have said they will announce 2 first-team squads simultaneously in order to compete in both competitions. And Tottenham Hotspur forward Heung-min Son has seen the red card he received at the weekend overturned. The South Korean international is now available for Spurs' next 3 domestic games after an independent panel disregarded a VAR decision to dismiss him for his part in a horror injury sustained by Everton's Andre Gomez. This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. I think that's fair enough for Heung-min Son, isn't it, Charlie? I mean, the referee gave him a yellow, then saw the state of the bloke's ankle and gave him a red. And it was obviously terrible that Andre Gomez got as hurt as he did, but ultimately someone getting hurt doesn't necessarily mean that the challenge was nasty.
Yeah, I do agree. It doesn't change the foul at all. You know, the ref saw it as a yellow. But the only thing that I would say, because a lot's being made again on social media that it was a dangerous tackle, that there was intent there. I don't think he is that type of player. But those two players, they did have a little, spat in the game. And 30 seconds earlier, there was a little challenge the other way.
He's never meant it. Never meant it.
No, I don't think he did either. But there was a little something, wasn't there, 30 seconds before that? So I don't know. There is a case for that. But yeah, it rescinded it and he plays on.
Absolutely. Well, our top story tonight, will they be playing on in the Premiership? They will for now, but this 35-point deduction isn't going to be doing Saracens any favours at all. We're joined on the line by friend of the show, George Shooter, former Saracens and England hooker. Evening, George. Thanks for your time. So this Saracens punishment is, as the old cliche goes, well and truly draconian. 35 points deducted, £5.36 million fine. Is that too harsh, or is it fair?
Well, it's the punishment that's set out in the regulations. Unfortunately, the money fine is for every I don't know what it is, for every pound over the wage cap. There's a certain amount of pounds you have to pay as a fine, and the regulations state that that's the maximum points they can deduct as well. So. Yeah, it sounds pretty harsh on it, and it certainly flips the table around a bit just looking at it now. But that's the regulations, and everyone I'm aware of signed up for those regulations and had to play by those rules.
How disappointed are you as a Sarries man?
Well, I mean, we're still finding out full details. To be honest, I think people have had their suspicions for a number of years now, but having suspicions and actually getting to prove them are completely different things. I think. Over the last sort of 8-10 years, Saracens have been a model as to how professional rugby potentially should be run in terms of looking after players and creating an environment where players are happy to be there, their wives and children are looked after and all that stuff. And then that translates to what you see on the field. You can't just buy those sort of performances. You have to build something properly. Then to sort of find out that some of that was done illicitly, shall we say, and it is disappointing. I won't lie, but I think it's still the bottom line is it's very difficult to sort of begrudge them any of those successes. I know people will. There will be certainly plenty of people out there asking for them to have titles stripped off and everything like that. But as I said there, money doesn't just buy success. You can't just fling money at people.
No, you're right, George. It doesn't, but it does help. And
yeah,
of course Saracens deny any wrongdoing. They're appealing it. I personally think they actually have quite a strong and intelligent argument. Yeah. But doesn't it at least kind of tarnish some of those titles? Because as you say, money doesn't buy titles, but if you're spending an extra few million per year in player wages, you're going to have a better squad, or you should have a better squad, and therefore a better chance of winning, surely.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's no denying that, and I think that's just common sense, if nothing else. The fact that they can rotate their squad and rest international players and replace them with other international players on the books is an advantage. So yeah, I guess this is where all the other teams, certainly the other teams' fans, are going to pile on and really get stuck into Saracens because they felt cheated, and those times we lost to Saracens. If we'd had a level playing field, we'd have won. Well, yeah, maybe, I suppose, but I guess it's still we're still in such an early part of this investigation. This is something that's going to rumble on for a very long time, I would imagine. It's very difficult to sort of sit here and make judgments on things that actually I don't properly understand. I don't think anyone really outside the club and perhaps the PRL understand fully. I mean, the wording of the judgment is quite misleading as well. It's satisfied they didn't deliberately break the rules, but actually they broke the rules, I think, is what it sort of sums it up to, which in itself is fairly ambiguous.
Yeah, Jules, two questions really. How long do we think this will rumble on for? And if the appeal is unsuccessful, will they have to dismantle the squad, and could relegation even be a possibility if they are unsuccessful? And how long will it take to recover from something like this?
Yeah. Good question. I mean, in terms of how long it's going to take to resolve, it's almost indefinite. I mean, we voted for Brexit 3 years ago, and we're still going through all that sort of malarkey. So things when you get lawyers involved, things can be pretty sort of drawn out. And I mean, I wouldn't even try and put a time frame on it, to be honest. I guess the only sort of constricting thing is actually the rules are fairly sort of sparse. It's not a massive discussion to be had, but like I say, when you get lawyers involved, the things can be strung out for a fair long time. And if they are found guilty, then I mean, I don't think there's any more severe punishment. It's not like double jeopardy or anything like that. But 35 points is significant, obviously. And my sort of gut feeling is that I don't think there will be relegation next year anyway. So I think they'll probably be safe. And then a little bit cynical perhaps, but I think with some of the money, particularly for the TV stuff that's come in over the last couple of years, I don't think the investing company CVC will be too keen on having a Premiership product without one of the top sort of the biggest teams. So,
George, when you say you don't think there'll be relegation, do you mean Saracens won't get relegated, or there will not be the possibility of anyone being relegated?
Yeah, ring fencing. Sorry, I was a bit vague on that one. Yeah, I believe they will ring fence the Premiership at some point, and probably, like I say, again, a little bit cynically of me, but I think should this happen and Saracens end up at the bottom of the Premiership next year, I think they'll fast track the ring fencing. To be honest,
that is absolutely fascinating. That is genuinely, I mean, gloriously cynical, but everything I want to hear. And when we're talking about the brilliance of this side and their appeal to sponsors as well, there were 8 Sarries players involved in that World Cup final, but this fine is a big one in rugby context. Is there any prospect of that squad being dismantled?
I don't think so. And again, I think some of this comes down to the wording. They've not been found to be guilty of breaching the cap. I think the investments Nigel Ray's made with a number of players are what's suspicious. So I think theoretically, and I may be wrong with this, I'm not an expert, but if those investments cease and desist now, then actually I think everything else is okay. So they don't have to sack people, they don't have to reduce their wage cap, because as I said, I don't think technically they're breaching their wage cap in certain respects. I think they've been guilty of overpaying this, going past the ceiling, which is again slightly ambiguous. It's not 100% clear. And I guess some of it is that players have got contracts and they're a bit more difficult. Again, this is more sort of legal mumbo jumbo that we'll have to get through if we're trying to get players to be released early, or you can't be sacking players. This is not their fault, so there's no sort of gross misconduct or anything like that. Again, that I'm aware of. So I think this is a far more complicated situation than most people who are actually giving it credit for. I think this is something that's going to rumble on, because there's so many blurred lines that I mean. It's very difficult to make head or tail of it at the moment.
Well, George, just finally, all of this Sarries drama, the one upside is that it's distracted us from the horror of Saturday morning's World Cup final. In the aftermath of that, we've been talking a lot about Eddie Jones. His current deal expires in 2021, 2 years before the next World Cup. How should England play this? Should they be looking to extend that and keep him on for another major tournament? Should they keep the 2 years, or should they cut their losses and let the new man get a new plan in place faster?
I think actually the middle of the three options there. I mean, if Eddie Jones is keen to go for another 4 years, then I suppose there's potentially that. I mean, he's certainly auditioned pretty well for the job to get it again. So I wouldn't have any problem with, if he wants to commit to 4 years, I wouldn't have any problem with that. I would suggest that getting rid of him completely and starting anew is a bit of a drastic term. I think that probably the middle ground there is, again, sort of sitting on the fence a little bit, is give him the 2 years, let him sort of mentor a replacement. And Rassie Erasmus has showed with the South African team that you only really need 2 years of good preparation to get on a World Cup cycle. You don't necessarily need the 4 years. And I think what England have got on their side at the moment is this squad is pretty young. I don't know what the average age was, but it wouldn't be much more than the sort of late 20s, mid to late 20s. So this is a squad that's going to be together for that 4 year period. So whoever takes over in, whether it's 2 years' time or next week, whatever it is, actually they've got a pretty good basis to start from. But I think Eddie Jones has certainly earned another crack at it if he wants to have a crack at it. I think he answered a lot of critics. I guess it's just whether he's prepared to do 4 years and whether perhaps there's someone else. I mean, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head who's actually snapping at his heels to take the job. So there may be a bit of that about it.
George, always great to talk to you. Thank you for your time. George Shooter, their former Saracens and England hooker. Really fascinating, his suggestion that the league could just change the rules. Saracens are that much of a commercial pull for sponsors that actually it's not in anybody's interest for them to exit the division. If that happened, would that not kind of defeat the purpose of the punishment?
Yeah, but it was fascinating, and what an insight to hear from George. But then why would they hand down this punishment? Why has it been so severe? Because if there was no plans to get rid of him in the league, I don't think it would have been this type of deterrent for this type of wrongdoing that they've supposedly done. It's all interesting, and George, he does make a good point there in a sense. This one will rumble on. There will be many ramifications of this. No one can quite predict how it will play out.
No, very, very tough one. I just want to end with a note on that England team. The youngest ever 15 to play in a World Cup final. Heartbreaking, of course, on Saturday morning. I could barely smile for about 24 hours afterwards. But this is a team that should be even better in 4 years' time, isn't it? Through this disappointment, we should be feeling optimistic.
You'd like to think so, but 4 years is a long time, I know, in rugby cycles.
Oh, Charlie! Well, trying to be cheery here, mate.
Yeah, you know what? Thinking about it now, we're going to win it.
What were you going to say?
No. I was just going to say, look, it's a long time. We say this about all of our sporting goes, don't we? But it is very difficult, and everyone else will try to get better who didn't do well this year. We can't see it like that. But the foundations of the squad, the core of the squad, is certainly there.
It absolutely is. Coming up, we're talking Phil Mickelson. He's dropped out of the top 50 for the first time in 26 years. What a record that is.
Love sport.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the rent, and. The cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer. And Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice. Soon as. I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Call now or search Macmillan Money Worries.
Can you save money on your energy bills? Tony did, with help from spokesmansaid.com. Getting people real savings.
I'm Tony from Northampton. My bills for gas and electricity had gone straight through the roof. I chose a Spokesman Said, and they saved me £2,800. It was so easy, I used them for my house and contents insurance too.
For help saving money on your energy bills, go to spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
This is Love Sport.
Well, Charlie Hawkins is really amping up the posh in his bid to be confirmed as an honorary posh boy, because he's just revealed he absolutely adores his golf.
I absolutely love it, and I thought, what can get me really in the Posh Boys team? Where can I find a gap? Where is there an opening? It is, of course, my love of golf, the etiquette, the class, it's just a beautiful sport. Here I am. Am I in the team, John?
Always. You always were. And another man who is a fundamental part of the team is Tom Reed, who's senior PGA teaching professional at Stoke Park Golf Club. Tom, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Mickelson has dropped out of that top 50 for the first time in 26 years. Sad to see him drop out, but what an extraordinary record that is.
Incredible, isn't it, Johnny? I mean, he's one of the players on tour. He's won 44 PGA Tour events. His first one was as an amateur. He was at college at Arizona State in it, and he won the Phoenix Open. I mean, this career spans back longer than that when you think about it. And he's won 5 major championships. He was 7 second places in the US Open. Didn't allow him to complete the Grand Slam, but he's still out there, and he's just done a hard reset. He's got himself in physical good physical condition. He's swinging the driver as fast as ever. I mean, he's a very unique and special player, is Phil Mickelson.
He's a very special player, Tom. He's loved by everyone. He's charming. He's funny. Everyone wants to meet Mickelson. Everyone wants to be Mickelson on tour. And when you talk about him there, and we talk about achievements that in all sports, across all sports, what teams do, they go in cycles as players. To be in the top 50 for 26 years, Brooks Koepka was free, Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth weren't even born. I mean, we can't even comprehend that, how much he's achieved, can we? We're talking of the likes of Luke Donald, who won the money, the official money list on both sides of the pond. We're talking about big players who have dropped out, and Phil Mickelson, year after year, in that top 50. I mean, it's an incredible achievement, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, he's seen a lot of these players come through, and acted as almost a father figure. And what I love about Mickelson is that throughout that time, I mean, it's a testament to his physical condition to start with. I know that he doesn't look like a Tiger Woods with the rippling biceps and abs, but he is in physically very good condition. So to be at the top of the game, the upper echelons of the game for as long as he has, you have to be in peak physical condition. And, he's also taken on the role. He interacts with the fans so well. He interacts with his fellow peers so well. He had a wonderful relationship with his caddy, Jim Mackay, which unfortunately ended a few years ago. I mean, obviously he's a people person as well as an unbelievable player, and it's sad to see him come out of that top 50. But I actually still think that he's going to break his way back into that top 50 because he won't like being out of there, that's for sure.
Yeah, because he's trying new things, Phil Mickelson, Tom. Obviously leaving his caddy Bones Mackay. Yeah. Obviously splitting up with Butch Harmon there, trying new things. And we thought that Phil Mickelson was going to go on a beautiful run. He won the Open Championship, a major that we never thought, one that we thought would maybe elude him. It wasn't the type of game he played. He wasn't best suited to links. He won the Open Championship. He's only won twice since. Obviously now out of that top 50, we know of his track record at Augusta, but it is the US Open. He wants all of those second places, never managing to finally get it over the line. We know it's the one he wants. Back at Winged Foot next year, obviously, and the demise in 2006. No better chance for him, is there, Tom?
No, absolutely. And listen, you're quite right. He now has mastered playing links golf early on in his career. He did struggle to bring the ball flight down, which means he couldn't control his ball flight in the winds. And, he's won at Muirfield, one of the most historic venues for the Open Championship. And I think Whistling Straits is going to be a really good opportunity for him. Obviously, we've got a Ryder Cup coming up there too. So it's going to be a good chance for him. As I said earlier, he has done a hard reset. So he is physically in very good condition. Like I say, his club head speeds are as fast as that of Rory McIlroy. Which is incredible, seeing as he's 20 years older than Rory. So I still see him as a genuine and serious contender for the major championships. I think the US Open is a wonderful opportunity for him. 7 second places. It'd be a Cinderella story for him to finish off his Grand Slam and his career with the US Open.
Yeah, it certainly would. Tom, you mentioned Rory McIlroy there, and I want to speak a little bit about him because obviously winning that World Golf Championships this weekend, he announced that he wouldn't be playing as much as he did on the European Tour. He wants to stick to the schedule he had last year. He doesn't want to do as much travelling. He said he realised that it wasn't of benefit to him. Staying in one place helped him. This is a loss for the European Tour, but he managed to work out, obviously, to fill in all those events. There was a bit of a discussion with Keith Pelly, but he will play. Is this a big loss for the European Tour? No, we won't see him as much, but they've worked their way around it, especially in a Ryder Cup year.
Yeah, it's a huge loss for the Tour. You're absolutely right. I mean, he's cleverly planned his schedule, and of course, Keith Pelly has worked very closely with the PGA Tour to ensure that we almost provide these top 50 players with a world tour. Their FedEx Cup finishes and our Rolex series then begins, and it also coincides with the NFL, so that all of the sports fans can make sure that they get a good kind of they kind of drip feed the major sporting events, so they're not all happening at once. Of course, we want Rory playing in Europe, but we're under no illusion that there's bigger prize money for him out in the US. A lot of the players base themselves in Florida now. I mean, Florida itself has 3 PGA Tour events. And it means that he can stay a little sharper during the off-season. It's difficult in Ireland and in the UK in the off-season, so I don't blame him for doing that. I still think that he's going to play the required counting events to make sure that he's selected for the team. But that's why the team selection changed to a combination of world ranking points as well as the European money list. So, he will still qualify for the event, but it's sad for the European Tour events because, the players like Rory draw the crowds and they create more interest in the events. I don't even think appearance fee money, even if the European Tour can afford it, would be great for Rory. I mean, he's he's picked up $20 million over the last couple of years, so it's going to be an interesting one for the Tour. But hopefully Rory's going to find his way back to at least the Irish Open. He hasn't actually committed to that yet, but it would be good for him to represent his home nation in the home event.
Tom, we've been talking about Lewis Hamilton this week. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you a question about F1. But we've been saying, is he underappreciated? This is one of the greatest British sportsmen, the leader in his field, and yet we don't seem to love him. Do you think the same applies to Rory McIlroy?
I do. I feel like Rory is defined by his failures rather than his success because he's such a strong player. People fully expect him to win every time he turns up, and when he doesn't, people wonder why. What's wrong with Rory? What's wrong with his technique? And there's nothing wrong with his technique. It's just because he's human, and people forget that because when he's playing his best golf, he's better than everyone else in the field. So there's a big, he's defined by his failures, and that's sad. But maybe that's what puts that kind of chip on his shoulder, a bit like Koepka. Rory's won 27 events as a professional, and counting, right? He's only 30. So there's a lot more in him, but he's totally underappreciated. I completely agree. He's one of the most talented players that we've ever had.
He certainly is. Every time he tees it up, Tom, we expect him to definitely either win that tournament or be there and thereabouts. And you mentioned Koepka. There is a little bit of rivalry going on. Koepka was asked about it a couple of weeks back and said, there is no rivalry between him and Rory. And Rory said, you know what, he's right. No one can do what Brooks is doing at the minute, winning those back-to-back majors. But was it a little bit backhanded? It felt a little bit disrespectful because he was like, I only look forwards and no one else is around me. Everyone's in my rear-view mirror. Let's not remember what Rory can do when he's on, and this is a man that's won 4 majors himself. There felt like a little subtle dig there for me. Rory said there wasn't, but was there, Tom?
Yeah, I think there was. I think that actually it's done Rory a favour. I think that if Brooks has a chip on his shoulder, there's no doubt about it. Even when people aren't having a go at him, he tries to create some drama because I think Brooks responds to that well. Tell him he can't do something and he does it. I said he missed a couple of weeks to the US Open because, statistically, there was no way his game suited. He finished second. Only the brilliance of Woodland could stop him. I think Rory did say in his press interview that he didn't appreciate Koepka reminding him that he hasn't won a major since 2014. 5 years, and considering how dominant Rory's been this year, 5 years at his age, it's a big gap between major championships. And what's even more interesting is that he's won the Players' Championship. He's winning WGCs. He's winning Order of Merits. He's winning the FedEx. He's still... It's not like he's not in form. He is in form, but he is not in form during major championships. And I think, you know what? Fair play to Brooks for calling him out on that. I don't know how that goes when they're on tour and playing practice rounds and on the range together. Maybe they're friends on the outside. But hopefully it lights a fire with Rory because to have not won a major with all that form in 5 years is disappointing. It'll be 6 years by the time the Masters comes around next April. So, and that's the one that, the one that's eluded Rory. He could break the major duck and finish the Grand Slam all in the first week of April next year. That's what I'm hoping for anyway.
Well, Tom, fingers crossed. Always such a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for your time. Tom Reed there, Senior PGA Teaching Professional at Stoke Park Golf Club. I'm moving you back to video gaming, Charlie. I'm not messing around. There were golf versions. I'm sure you can cheat on them. But we're talking FaZe Jarvis, the YouTube superstar, over 2 million subscribers, who's been banned for life from Battle Royale game Fortnite for cheating using an aimbot. My first question for you is simple. Are you a gamer?
I am.
What is the game of choice?
Oh, do you know what? It wasn't ever FIFA. It was Pro Evolution.
Oh, God. Here we go. Hang on. At what point, though? Because if we're talking like 2005, 2006, that's acceptable because then Pro Evo was the superior beast.
Thank you.
Now, not a prayer.
Now I don't really play the FIFA or Pro.
I'm Charlie. I'm really grown up. Oh, I don't play Fortnite. I don't use aimbots. Oh.
if you let me finish, and to finish, I play Call of Duty or Football Manager.
To be fair, Football Manager is the absolute one.
The GOAT.
The GOAT. On this specific case, this kid has been banned, and he is a kid, important to stress, he's 17 years old. He has been banned for using an aimbot. That is to say, you download a bit of software onto your computer that just snaps onto your enemy. You pull the trigger and it hits him in the face. Therefore, you're going to win the game, right? In a video game where the idea is to be the last man standing and kill other people, a piece of software which gives you automatic headshots is basically the golden bullet, quite literally. Should he be banned? Should he be banned for life for an indiscretion he's made as a kid? Bearing in mind, for these YouTubers, it's not just a hobby, it's a career. This guy will be making hundreds of $1,000s a year, and his audience are interested in Fortnite. If you stop him from producing that content, you're taking away his livelihood.
It's a big audience, and apparently his revenue's in the millions. Should he be banned for life for what it is? A mistake would be that he didn't know, but he is young. He needs to learn from this. Banned for life, something that he loves and he's good at. I don't know if that's the right message, because when we're talking about cheating, other thing, there's big degrees of cheating. This is certainly on the lower end. It wasn't in the competitive game. Should he be banned for life? No. Should he learn from this lesson and have a period where he is banned or suspended time? Yes, of course.
I do think it's harsh. I really do. Coming up, we'll be previewing tonight's Champions League action, and we'll have team news for you before 7.
This is Love Sport.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Premier League, Championship and fan shows. 7 days a week. We've got your team covered. Love Sport. Are you paying way too much for your energy bills? A Spokesman Said could help you save big money. With electricity costs continuing to rise, you could save hundreds of pounds by shopping around. Just go to aspokesmansaid.com and look for the very best value energy deals on the market. Don't waste your hard-earned cash. You could be on a much cheaper deal. Go to aspokesmansaid.com.
Fighting for you, saving you money.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
Love Sport.
Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. Johnny Burrow, Charlie Hawkins and producer Laurie Callis, who has all your latest sporting headlines and weather.
Yeah, I do indeed. I just wanted to quickly come in, though. You were having that PES FIFA debate before. And one thing that you do need to note now in the modern day is that FIFA's gone full PES with its Piemonte Calcio Juventus name.
Yeah, that's true. Football Manager's done the same. I think they're called something like Gervi in Football Manager.
That's a better option, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so. It's just funny that Ronaldo's still playing, so surely the most powerful thing to have with the sponsorship deal would be the name.
That's very, very true.
Anyway, let's get on to the headlines. So, of course, the big story we've all been talking about is Saracens and a certain 35-point deduction by Premiership Rugby. That's after being found guilty of breaching salary cap rules, and they've also been fined a big 5.3 million, which they say is heavy-handed. It comes following a 9-month investigation into owning Nigel Ray and the club's players. But that 35-point deduction would still have seen them stay in the league in the last 3 seasons. And as we heard before, potentially it'll be ring-fenced anyway, so it might not mean anything at all. Hellas Verona have banned a fan from attending games until 2030 for racially abusing Brescia forward Mario Balotelli. Luca Castellini, who's the head of an Ultras supporters group, said that Balotelli could never be completely Italian in an interview on Monday. A couple of sporting football headlines that have come out in the last couple of hours. Liverpool's Carabao Cup tie at Aston Villa is to be played on December the 17th. That's the day before their first FIFA Club World Cup match in Qatar. The club have said they will announce 2 first-team squads simultaneously in order to compete in both competitions. And a little bit from their statement, they said it's not an ideal scenario, but was reached with the best interests of the competition, our fellow clubs and ourselves. So clearly not happy, but doesn't seem like there are too many other options there. And of course, that big story from the weekend, Tottenham Hotspur forward Heung-min Son having been sent off for that challenge on Andre Gomez after a VAR review, has had his red card overturned by an independent panel. So that means he's now available for the next 3 domestic games for Spurs. A little bit of weather for you. We talked about that S word before. No, it's not San Maximin, Cher, or indeed Shelby. But it is snow. But there's not much of it coming in the next couple of days at all. It does look like it might be later in the week, but I quite frankly don't have enough expertise to tell you how likely it is. Tonight, though, light showers and cloud, and temperatures not really dropping below 10.
I would normally thank a producer for reading the headlines and the weather, but I've got to apologise on Laurie Callis's behalf there for the shameless attempt to get Newcastle players into what is Posh Boys on Drive. Anyway, I'm going to punish him by moving on to talk about a tournament which Newcastle will not be involved in his lifetime. The Champions League, we've got English clubs in action tonight. Liverpool against Genk. And actually, Genk are not the whipping boys that some people expected them to be.
No, they certainly are. And this fixture is important for a number of reasons. Liverpool play one day before City. They're in action in the Champions League tomorrow night, and it is a crucial game on the weekend, isn't it, Johnny? It is Liverpool-Man City, and the title race is on. They get an extra day rest and recovery before City. Could that impact tonight's lineup? Could that impact tonight's team before we get it? Would you say so? Because Liverpool are at home.
I think it is a tough one. I mean, Jurgen Klopp is an intelligent guy. He knows all about squad management. But that is going to be at the front of his mind, isn't it, for the entirety of the rest of the season? Because apart from anything else, beyond just the basic levels of fatigue, you do not want a key man to pick up an injury against Genk.
Well, it's not just against Genk, it's against anyone, you know.
No,
when you've got a
course.
run of fixtures.
And all due respect to Genk, but you don't want to take undue risks, do you, in games that you should be winning?
Yeah, big games that you should be winning. This is a game that they should be winning, Liverpool. And obviously, if they can go on to win this, the group is really tight. Napoli, obviously, with that point in front. Liverpool win this game. They need to, because they still have Napoli to play. And obviously, they lost that game and then a game against Salzburg. So they need to amass the points before that crucial game. But will they maybe not get complacent? Because I don't think the Klopp side is complacent. But could they have one eye on the weekend as well?
No, I'm sure they will be focused on it. And of course, we've got Chelsea in action as well against Ajax. That is a tough game.
I think Chelsea have got this in the bag quite
Really?
comfortably. They've already gone to Amsterdam. They've already got a result. Now they play the return, which is obviously at Stamford Bridge tonight. This game really tight. Chelsea on 6, Ajax on 6, Valencia on 4. They were denied. Lille getting a late goal there to get a point for them. This group is wide open. Obviously, Chelsea are losing earlier to Valencia in game day 1. Chelsea need to win their home games as always in the Champions League. Pick up the results away. They've already got that result away to Ajax. I can see them cruising to 9 points here.
Wow, that is a big shout. I want to turn our attentions to the clubs involved in the Europa League. Firstly, Charlie, with your beloved Arsenal, because we're hearing Granit Xhaka, the club captain no less, will not be in the squad for tomorrow's Europa League tie against Vitoria. Now, he was left out of the squad against Wolves as well, following him swearing at the Arsenal fans when subbed off against Crystal Palace. What's your take on this entire situation? Is there any way back into the Arsenal fold for Granit Xhaka?
I hope so. From a personal standpoint, I think both were to blame. Obviously, his actions on the day and the way he was treated. Obviously, and again, it sounds like a theme on the show, but some of the abuse he was suffering on social media was absolutely terrible, wasn't it, Johnny? You say shocking, and it truly was. Some of the comments that were being made about family members. No player deserves this, and we do need to stop this element of the game, and it is creeping in. Whether or not that boiled over, and I'm sure it did, how would everyone else hold up under that regard? He didn't act in the greatest way, but he was booed off. It's no surprise, though, if I'm honest, that he has been left out. It will take time back. I do believe he will come back, though, but maybe this is it. We need to let the dust settle, let it all blow over. I'm sure it will take a little while. He'll be back on the bench, minutes in the game, but it could be good for the team. He just needs to fly almost under radar at the minute, because obviously we're seeing it, we're talking about it's still a big story. Xhaka not in the squad.
But equally, mate, if he's flying under the radar nominally by not being in the squad, that is a big story. Right? As long as he's not in the squad, every time he's not in the squad, I'm going to go, Granit Xhaka's still not in the squad. Is there any way back into the Arsenal fold?
Yeah, but it's still only just over a week. If we were 6 weeks in and we still haven't seen a sign of Xhaka, how quick did we expect to see him? How much? We had Bryce on earlier talking about players' psychology and how long it takes to get over things. How long does it take for Granit Xhaka? And secondly, were we expecting to see him start against a Vitoria side when Emery does rotate in the Europa League? We don't moan that we see Martinez over Leno. We're going to see Mustafi. We're going to see Holding, who's getting back from injury. We're going to see Willock and Smith-Rowe. Would Xhaka would have started in this game anyway?
No, quite possibly not. Another Europa League club this season, Manchester United. I've got a couple of stats for you that are pretty damning. The last Manchester United player to score a hat-trick in the Premier League was Robin van Persie versus Aston Villa on the 22nd of April 2013. Since then, Manchester City have bagged 15, Spurs have bagged 9, Chelsea have bagged 8, Liverpool 7 and Arsenal 5. That is 44 hat-tricks between them. Adam Johnson has scored a hat-trick in the Premier League more recently than Manchester United. He was in jail for 3 years and hasn't played professional football since. Why aren't they racking up the goals?
Well, that's incredible stats. I can't believe that Man United, of all the talent they used to have, and they were known for scoring goals and their creativity and their weapons, haven't had a hat-trick. It's unbelievable, really. It's bound to happen sooner or later. How much can you judge, though? They could argue that they've been spreading it about, not in the last 18 months, because, it's been not the greatest form for them. But maybe this is one of the problems then. Where is that 20, 30 goal scorer a season? They thought they had it in Lukaku, paid good money for him, never happened.
They did have it in Lukaku, though, because he's gone to Inter Milan and he's banging
completely
goals
different league. No, he was never done a job at United. I can't be told otherwise, Johnny. He'd done it at West Brom, almost done it at Everton. He wasn't Man United. His technical ability, holding up the ball, skills on the ball. It's a completely slower league. A powerful man like Lukaku suits Serie A, does not suit the Premier League. It's a much slower pace. Come on.
I think you're right in the Lukaku's
the
first
FM
touch
stats.
wasn't up to it. I know the FM stats, but career goals by the age of 26. Thierry Henry, 210. Michael Owen, that well-known teenage prodigy, 217. Harry Kane, 218. Luis Suarez, 223. Wayne Rooney, 227. Robert Lewandowski, 231. Romelu Lukaku, 245. I appreciate that there are deficiencies in his game. I appreciate that he is technically lacking, but he is a man who scores goals everywhere he goes, including, by the way, Manchester United. 28 and 66 in the Premier League isn't shocking.
Yeah, but he should be scoring at Man United. Why did they sell him then?
No, it's a good question. It is a good question. Another glorious United stat, by the way. Watford goalkeeper Ben Foster has more shots on target this season than Jesse Lingard. quite something. Ahead of tonight's Champions League game, we've got confirmation of the Liverpool team news ahead of their big game against Genk, and Laurie Callis can educate us.
Yeah, well, Divock Origi is preferred up front this evening, which, do you know what? I think a couple of seasons ago, you would have thought Divock Origi playing up front for Liverpool in the Champions League, not that amazing, but actually he's really shown himself to be a top alternative striker at the moment.
Do you see Klopp describe him as a Liverpool legend in the week? Which weirdly, I guess he is, and he always will be. Excuse me, don't pull that face. He scored a goal in a Champions League final, and more importantly,
is Gareth Bale a Real Madrid legend to the fans?
No, okay, game, set and match Hawkins. Laurie, carry on. I'm in disgrace.
So let's just go from top to bottom. We've got Alisson in goal, Alexander-Arnold with a Joe Gomez and Van Dijk centre-back partnership. James Milner looks to be playing, potentially at left-back. Fabinho, Wijnaldum and Naby Keita make up the midfield, with Oxlade-Chamberlain, Salah and Origi presumably playing as a front three.
That sounds quite lively to me. I mean, he's taking it very seriously, isn't he?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could say, but obviously Firmino's on the bench, Robertson's on the bench, Mane's on the bench.
Man City on the mind, Laurie.
Yeah, it absolutely must be, because, you know, the only real sort of sub-players on that bench that you'd look at is Lallana, Lovren and Adrian. None of them can ever really be expecting to start, but Firmino and Mane and Robertson, you know, they're like real talisman in that Liverpool side. And obviously Salah, who's been injured, was subbed at the weekend, but not putting him in the squad in a Champions League game, is that arrogance, or are they really looking forward to the weekend?
Well, I mean, the weekend is the biggest game that they have so far this season. It is the biggest game, arguably, that they will have this season. If they can win that game, they go 9 points clear at the top of the Premier League. And there's a serious argument, isn't there, that it's game, set and match?
Well, yeah, absolutely, and I think that Champions League win last season is really a big win in terms of mentality for this Liverpool side, because obviously they were getting better gradually, but you know they really didn't have anything to show for it. They were a little bit Spursy, if you will. But you know, now at this point they've won that Champions League, and we were talking earlier on Martin Bell about whether Man City and Liverpool fans will be happy for a sort of swap deal where Liverpool win the league and Man City win the Champions League, because it really is that sort of place now where both of them are playing really good football. Both of them have unquestionably top teams, but they both have this kind of black mark against their name of something that they haven't won. And obviously with Pep's history in the Champions League as well, people saying, you know, if he'd never had Messi, he never would have won it.
It's probably true, by the way.
If he hadn't had Messi, he would never have won it.
Well, yeah. What's he done with anyone else? He had every chance with Bayern Munich, didn't do it. He's had every chance with Man City. They were arguably the favourites last year. He hasn't done it. And you take Messi out of that Barca team, I'm not convinced he wins it.
I do think a real good story would be now if Wenger takes over at Bayern Munich, wins the Champions League in his first season.
It'll be Mourinho. It'll be Mourinho just for ego, because if he wins the Champions League at Bayern Munich, he has that over on Pep, and he will always want one over on Guardiola. Coming up, we're going to be finding out what delights Love Sport Radio have got coming up for you after 7.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Henna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
This is Love Sport.
Well, we got the team news for Chelsea against Ajax, and there is a huge, huge inclusion for a young man with only one Premier League start. Our own Laurie Callis has more. If he turns his mic
Sorry,
on.
terrible by me there.
Come on, Lolly.
It looks as if Billy Gilmore, the 18-year-old with one league appearance, obviously a very highly rated youngster, they got him from Rangers, I believe, a couple of years ago, and he's come through the youth ranks now. As I say, one league appearance, and looks like, although Charlie will deny this, Frank Lampard is putting his faith in the youth once again. Wow. Alonso's in for Emerson, which probably isn't an absolutely massive surprise. No Giroud or Pedro in the squad for Chelsea tonight. But we know how much strength they have in the wingers' positions. Pulisic and Willian, hard to argue against that. Abraham, of course, in incredible form.
Harsh, though. Harsh to not give Batshuayi any time. But
yeah, absolutely. But I think, can you argue with that when you're playing behind a striker with such prolific form? I don't think you can really complain.
It's a very good point. A strong team for Chelsea, and we're joined in the studio by Matt Beadle, who's carrying you forward for the fan shows, stepping in for a certain Mr. Charlie Hawkins. Matt, what is coming up?
What a super sub.
Yeah, it's
The
world
best.
class.
Like Giroud, although he's not playing.
Now
so...
Ronaldo for Messi, surely.
Well, I thought he was a Ronaldo. I thought you've already done that pun today, that he was the Ronaldo for guys.
Calling
Messi.
you out for your
We
puns,
have,
John.
but as long as Guy's not listening, we get away with it.
We'll take it. I'll take that I'm Ronaldo over Messi.
Okay.
Yeah, more Ronaldo stature compared to the.
Not with that, Barney.
Here he is.
What's coming up from
Ooh.
7? Before you
So we have the West Ham show with the guys from We Are West Ham, and they are fumigating, as one might say. They are not happy at all. I tell you what, the notes that they've given me are pretty much just embarrassing, shambles, pathetic. They are not happy about the performance on Saturday against Newcastle United.
Our producer is a Newcastle fan, but it wasn't just that Newcastle were quite good. West Ham really were awful, weren't they?
They were, but I do think you need to give Newcastle some credit. I think Lolly will agree with me that they do need the credit, and I think that, you know, they haven't. The crazy thing is, Newcastle hadn't scored more than once in their 10 Premier League games prior to this one. So to bang in 3, and I tell you what, it was slightly abject from West Ham. And you look at Alan Saint-Maximin. Do you see the moment when he was on the halfway line and he just absolutely gassed Pablo Zabaleta? It was ridiculous. But yeah, interesting one that. I think that they will be fuming. Looking forward to it. Of course, they have Burnley this weekend as well. And then from 8 p.m, it's the boys from Crystal Palace. Another, it wasn't an abject performance, but Leicester were just brilliant.
Yeah, no shame in getting done by a team
victory.
like that.
No, a comprehensive victory. Again, though, cannot score goals. Roy Hodgson is 72 now, by the way. He's hoping for another contract, but I don't know. I think, judging by what I've heard from Palace fans, they'd happily see him run out his contract and part amicably.
I think they would, but do you not think he's quite hard done by there? I think he's done a really, really good job with a distinctly limited squad.
I lost any patience / respect for Roy Hodgson in Euro 2016 when he failed to give us all the answers that we wanted.
Yeah, okay. We were all upset in Euro 2016,
Well,
but
we
we
can still
can't
be upset,
hold the
mate.
grudge.
Yes, we can.
So he's now not a good manager of Crystal Palace because he was rubbish for England.
Never gave answers. No, I'm not saying that he's not a good manager for Palace. He's done a decent job at Palace, and sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for. But Palace, listen, they were riding high in 6th place before Saturday's game. However, you have to ask the question as to whether Roy can push them on to that next level. And
They're
the fact
1
they
point
can't
off
score
the
goals.
top 6, man. That is the next level,
But
and they're so close.
but look at this season, Johnny. It's an absolute shambles from top to bottom.
They're 1 point off the top 6.
Yeah, but if you look at why they're 1 point off the top 6, look where Spurs are this season. Look where Man United, to an extent, are this
Well, they
season.
beat Man United.
They did. Yeah.
He's getting goals out of Jordan Ayew. That's blood from a stone
Well, that's
material.
impressive, right? And I don't think anybody would have expected that. It's 4 from him this season. That's nearly 1 in 2 for Jordan Ayew, which is absolutely unthinkable. Christian Benteke still not on the score sheet. They're struggling for goals. Look at Victor Camarasa. Where the hell is he?
That is a very, very good point.
Max Meyer was brought in last summer. He doesn't seem to have made any impact.
He's very lightweight for me, Max Meyer. From 9, QPR fan show. What's the feeling there?
Yeah, QPR, again, kind of similar in a way to Palace against Leicester at the weekend. QPR at Leeds, a very difficult team to break down, of course, at Ellen Road, let alone anywhere playing Leeds. They haven't conceded. I think the statistics now are something like nearly 0.5 per game goals conceded. If they carry on at the rate they're on, they will concede by the end of the season between the 27 to 30 goal mark for goals against. That's phenomenal. I don't think that's ever been done in the history of football to concede that few goals. So Leeds, no shame in losing at Leeds. But again, the way they lost, they didn't really offer anything. Angel Rangel, one of the players that might come in for
best
a
name in
bit
football.
of criticism. Absolutely. Yeah, and a good bloke as well. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
But I think that they might need to start looking elsewhere now. Jordan Hugill as well. Paul Robinson, of all people. The goalkeeper, Paul Robinson, with absolutely no connection to
Do you
QPR
hate him
whatsoever.
as well?
No,
because he had an England clanger back in 1942.
He's been a bit silly now, hasn't he? Croatia. Yeah, do you know what? I've spoken to Paul Robinson about that clanger. And listen, it happens in the life of a goalkeeper, doesn't it? And I like Paul Robinson. Got a lot of time for him. But he has come out and said that he thinks Jordan Hugill might want to go back to West Ham in January.
Oh, he's
and
not going to play.
He might think about recalling him. So I'm going to bring that up with the West Ham boys. Of course not. That's ridiculous.
Zero.
And it's one of those comments that you read and you go, Jordan Hugill should rejoin West Ham in January. And you go, oh, yeah. So says Paul Robinson. No, I'm not going to open that.
Johnny Burrow should sign for Manchester United in January, says Johnny Burrow. From 9...
Bit of height there, mate. You could probably...
Get a nod on it. From 9, the Leicester fan show. From 10, sorry, the Leicester fan show. They've been brilliant.
They have been absolutely brilliant. And listen, I'm not afraid to blow my own trumpet here, and I will tell the boys this a bit later, that I said at the start of the season, when you do all your predictions, and everybody writes down Golden Boot winner, who's going to go down, who's going to go up, who's going to have the most red cards, etc., etc. I said Leicester, top 4. And everyone went, oh, top 6 maybe, but not top 4. Well,
definitely.
Who is laughing now? Matt Beadle's friends that no one knows, so cheers.
Laurie Callis, I think, has some input he'd like to offer.
Well, I just wanted to get in on the best football names, because I know you put in a shout for Angel Rangel, but please do not forget Wolfgang Wolf.
Yeah,
the former FC Kaiserslautern defender.
Naughty is right up there. Naughty.
John de Kock.
John de Kock,
yeah.
a fantastic player. From 10:30, well, a rise Sir Lundstrom, a 3-0 win for Sheffield United against Burnley. They're a proper outfit.
They are one heck of a proper outfit. And what's incredible is that they hold the joint best defensive record in the division, alongside Leicester City. Sheffield United, 8 goals conceded this season.
Turns out those big boys are rubbish. But Matt Beadle is exceptional. It sounds like you've got a cracking full shows coming up. I'll be listening on my way home, as I always do. West Ham from 7, Crystal Palace from 8, QPR from 9, Leicester from 10, and Sheffield United from 10:30. Charlie Hawkins, what an absolute delight to spend 4 hours in your company. A spectacular step in for Mr. Guy Watts. You are welcome as an honorary posh boy whenever you see fit. We've had a cracking show, haven't we?
We've had a cracking show. May I say thank you for you, Johnny, for allowing me to step in, and Guy. What a pleasure this has been. I've dreamed of this. I got my moment. It finally happened. I would have paid good money. I've actually better pay someone now for allowing me to fill in. Thank you. The pleasure was certainly all mine.
Well, it's a cracking show. The pleasure is going to continue for you all at home with the fan shows. So stay with Love Sport Radio from 7, and the Posh Boys are back from 3 o'clock tomorrow.
Love Sport.
Don't get caught out in the great energy price hike as large firms look to charge you more. If you want to save money on your energy bills, it's not too late to see what's on the market. With rising gas and electricity bills, don't get caught out wasting your money on expensive tariffs. A Spokesman Said will show you the very best value deals available. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could be using your savings to put towards a well-earned holiday.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Good evening. You are listening to a Love Sport Radio, and me, Matt Beadle, with you through to 11 p.m. this evening. It is time for our Tuesday night fan show special. And first up, it is the boys from We Are West Ham. Safe to say, the mood in the studio is already, well, it's not great. I'm not going to lie to you. Of course, a 3-2 home defeat to Newcastle at the weekend. Plenty to discuss, plenty to dissect about that performance with the boys. James Jones will be here, Will Pugh will be here, and we're going to be joined by Tom Edwards as well. If you'd like to join the debate, 0208 70 20 558. You can tweet us as well at Love Sport Radio. It's the West Ham fan show coming up on Love Sport after this news update.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7. A nursery worker is being investigated over multiple allegations of sex offences against children as young as 2. The man was arrested in July after one child's parents called police. Officers have since identified other potential victims after studying hundreds of hours of CCTV footage. Parents at the now closed nursery in Torquay and Devon are trying to come to terms with the news.
I don't know which children are involved. I don't really want to know, but we're all supporting each other because that nursery's been fantastic and it is like family. We've never had any doubts, so it is a huge, huge shock.
All 79 branches of Mothercare are to shut. Administrators say there will be a phased closure of shops, but they're working to keep the stores trading for as long as possible. The baby retailer's collapse puts 2,500 jobs at risk. Former Chancellor Philip Hammond's decided not to contest his seat in next month's general election. The Runnymede and Weybridge MP, who was expelled from the Tories for